Welcome to the final part of the Cuphead 1/180% tutorial. We're going to be getting into it here with Inkwell Hell. Just two bosses to go, King Dice and Devil. And yeah, for King Dice, obviously he's got multiple mini bosses we're going to have to be fighting. I'm going to explain all the things about each individual mini boss. The plan is I'll probably just play through this once or twice, show you kind of what's going on, and then I'll pull up some videos of the harder to optimize mini bosses, the Rabbit and Piruletta, to kind of give you a slow motion or slow, frame by frame explanation of what's kind of going on. But yeah, so the first thing with King Dice is why we go for the route that we do. So we're going to be going for 3-5-7 on the board. And to do 3-5-7, you're going to roll all threes. The only time you don't need to roll three on the dice is right here. Once you're on the safe spot, you can just roll a 2 or a 3 to end up at the finish. But for every other case, you want to roll 3, 3, 3, 3 to move throughout the board. And the reason this is so good is it's the path that has the least amount of total rolls that doesn't land on the monkey. Because on Legacy, they're able to do something similar, but they basically can roll a 2 at the start and then roll all threes. But these are better mini bosses for us because the monkey, without the monkey skip, like in Legacy, it's much faster to go 3-5-7. Now, an important thing to note is how King Dice's thing works. So, you can see here he claps. As soon as he claps, the parry's spawned in. If you parry it instantly, you will get a guaranteed 1. Which in our case, we never want a 1. So if you parry instantly, you get a 1. Now how the dice works is it can either rotate clockwise or counterclockwise. Although I don't think of it personally. I don't think about the rotation of it. I just look to see visibly whether I see a 2 or a 3. And whichever number you see, you know the other number. So if you see 3 first, you know a 2's coming. If you see a 2 first, you know a 3's it's spinning towards a 3. That's kind of how I think about the dice. So if you wait just the tiniest bit, you'll guaranteed get a 3 or a 2. It's just a 50-50. That's relevant for the final spin because, like I said, at the very end, you could roll a 2 or a 3. So you don't even have to, react to which one it is. You just wait a little tiny bit so you avoid getting the 1, and then you'll either hit a 2 or 3 to roll to the ending. Now, for the rest of these, you're going to have to actually react to what you see. The first way to start off is for these spins. So there, I see a 2. So I know a 3's coming. In this situation, this would be what's called a quick roll, where you see the 2, you know the 3's coming, and you immediately get the 3 without waiting an extra rotation. Now, in this circumstance where it goes from 2, it starts on 2 basically, and then goes to 3, and you go for this quick spin. This doesn't save time or anything over waiting for another full spin, unless specifically there's a bonus heart on the board. So you can see this 5 space has a bonus heart. So on my next spin, if I were to get this RNG where it starts, the first visible number is a 2 and then it rolls over to 3 right away. If that happens and I'm rolling onto a heart, because of the animation of collecting a heart and the time you spend on an extra spin, it ends up losing you time. And in all other cases, waiting out that extra spin on that dice pattern will not lose you time because King Dice kind of operates on a frame rule system or something. Basically, he's animation locked for a certain amount of time no matter what, and getting the quick spin isn't going to make a difference. It's not going to save time unless you're landing on the heart because, like I said, of that extra animation of collecting a heart. Now, if it spins the other direction, let me see if I can get that. So there's the 2. So in this case, I would wait a full extra spin. I just take it. There's no heart here, so it wouldn't even save time to go for a quick roll. it doesn't hurt to go for the quick roll. It's just, you know, sometimes you'll misreact and mess it up. So in that case, the first visible number was a 3. In that one, even if you're going to go towards a heart, because there's one less total spin before you get back to 3, you could just wait a full rotation like I did there, and you will never lose time, even if there's a bonus heart. So basically, if the first visible numbers on the dice is a 3, you just wait the full rotation every time. If the first visible number is a 2, you can immediately go for the quick roll since the 3 is coming right up, which does, like I said, save you like half a second or about if there's a heart. Otherwise, yeah, don't even worry about it. It's also like, it's a risky thing. If you're really nervous at the end of the run, going for the quick roll, like you really will actually have to like practice this and, you know, hope you can hold it together. But I wanted to mention it because it is kind of a relevant thing. But anyway, so that's pretty much it for the dice board. So here I have a bonus heart. I started on 3, so I was able to wait a full rotation and still not lose time. And we're going to be going into the Cigar. Now, on Cigar, you're just going to hold shoot. Shoot straight forward. If you don't shoot straight forward and you shoot upright, for some reason, like, your bullets can kind of get blocked sometimes by his flame. But if you just shoot straight right, your bullets will hit. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to inch forward into a safe spot, which is right here. This is actually several pixels wide. You could kind of experiment with this yourself. But I like to line it up so the front, like, big part of Cuphead's shoe here just barely is visible. So it's normally this, like, salt or whatever is, like, foreground that's covering it. But I move forward just enough so the outline of the big part of his shoe is visible. And this will put you into a sweet spot where you don't have to worry about moving anymore. This isn't really that relevant. As long as you're not losing DPS on the lobbers, it's okay. Now, he can shoot 1 to 3 flames. The less flames he shoots, the better. As soon as he's in this part, you want to start just setting up a bread and butter lobber trap. Just set up the best lobber trap that you can right away. And then also, like, on the last couple lobbers, inch forward and set them up on the ground because he's about to pop out. And what we want to do is we want to be to the left side of the center of this platform, like I am here. I'm just left of center, because he's going to point at you when he comes out, and we're basically wanting to bait him to look left. So then you can switch to spread, get some spread on him, and then move out to the right and use kind of the lock thing to turn around, the lock button to turn around and just shoot him a bunch. Now on this part, we're going to be lining up some triples. And also, once you go for these EX moves, you're going to want to... Normally these EXs, when you go for these down left EXs, they will scoot you off the edge. But in this case, if you press jump right after the EX move comes out, you'll basically do this like off the edge jump that will keep you from falling into the fire. And that kind of just lets you line up a couple triples or doubles there. Oh, sorry for the pointer there. And yeah, that's pretty much Cigar. I'll go over it kind of one more time. I'll also pull up like a fight of a 148 later. There, the first visible number was 3. I was able to wait that full rotation again. Want to point that out. So let's see. Just shoot straight forward. Cigar is actually pretty simple. Yeah. So that was 1 pixel too close. Let me see if I can pause the game in this kind of position. Okay. So you want... This is basically the pixel. I'm not exactly sure what you'd use for a visual cue, but this is kind of the lineup I could use. So if you can memorize this position, you can also be like 1 more pixel back from this, like to the right, and it'll still be okay. But yeah, this is where you want to be at for the triple. I feel like the upper part of Cuphead's shoe, if it's being blocked by the foreground here mostly, then that means you're 1 pixel too close. But if you're here, you could kind of see the, you could see the upper part of his shoe better, and that's like the visual cue I use. That's kind of hard to explain, but you know, you kind of get the idea. Use that pointer there and see. But yeah, you're wanting to kill this guy before he switches sides. And yeah, just take him down. So Cigar, you are taking 1 guaranteed damage boost, and that is a thing, is you're on these bonus hearts, you're not always going to have bonus hearts on 357. Now, even if you get no bonus hearts on 357, it's still always fastest to do 357. But if you're just dying, like let's say you have no bonus hearts and you know that you usually die to going for 357. Like you die at Piruletta or something if you have no bonus hearts, or you're not comfortable with that yet. You can do an extra dice roll and go for 348. 348 is very consistent. It's a bit of an easier set of mini bosses. I believe in the beginner intermediate tutorial I go over that, and you can still go for that if you want. I'm not going to show the optimizations for 4 and 8 here because they're pretty, for one, they're pretty self-explanatory, and for 2, it's like the optimal route here is 357 in all cases. But yeah, you are kind of hoping you get at least 1 bonus heart. That is going to help you out a lot. But you'll have very little room for error if you get 357. So I didn't need to go for that quick roll there. I could have waited 1 extra spin and not lost time. There's no bonus heart. But yeah, on the rabbit here, I'm just going to jump forward and do a down right lobber. And then land on this platform and just kind of shoot him down. Now for these parries up top, you kind of just have to psychically time this, just get used to the timing. And there is RNG to the timing. What I like to do is I like to aim for like what I think to be the earliest timing that he'll start moving these down. Because like I can't just parry this heart, even though it's pink and it's there. Like I can't parry it until he starts sending the things down. So I'm gonna just try to get it there. With the pause, that was really tough. But if you just barely miss the timing because you went too early, you can drop down here and then try to quickly jump and parry. And that will kind of help you out with that. Let me go through this like 1 more time real quick, and then I'll try to actually kind of get through the fight.
A brawl is surely brewing. Here goes.
So yeah, you could see Cigar this time's actually doing more flames, so you're getting a... Yeah, here's 3 flames. This is the worst RNG. If you get this RNG, you do have less time to line up these triples. You can see there I actually overkilled him a little bit, so I was having a hard time lining up the triples. And yeah. It also like loses a good bit of time to get that RNG, unfortunately. But yeah, it's not too big of a deal. But yeah, I'm gonna show a more advanced strat to you for Rabbit, but here I'm just gonna show the strat I initially recommend. So do this opening lobber, shoot lobbers. Now, no matter where he puts the opening here, there is a universal movement that always works. As soon as he locks in the thing, like to start closing in on you, just move forward a tiny bit and jump, basically. And you could jump in between them like that. If you get a parry here, just get it. If you're going to hit 5 cards, make sure to use an EX, but you'll probably naturally spin them. You can also do stuff like that. On the second set of parries, there's pretty much always a parry up close. And you can kind of go in for the kill there. If you have the practice the fight enough and have a feel for that, you can get an idea of when to go in for the kill. Just close the distance between you and the rabbit at the very end. If you don't feel comfortable though doing that though, you can just stay in the back on the card the whole time. All right, so for Piruletta, we're gonna just shoot a couple lobbers while walking forward and do a straight EX. Now, she can either spin in place, which is what she's doing now, and that's what you want. Also, I think this EX might have missed. I shot it a little bit too early there. So she can spin in place or charge. I'm going to show like good examples of both of those in a bit. But all you need to know for now is that I'm going to basically go up there, shoot her with spread, and I'm going to try to line up a bunch of triple damage EXs, which I'll show the lineup and stuff for that when I show the video clips later. But we're going to just basically damage boost through the balls if you have the HP. If you don't have the HP, I would step back and just shoot lobbers and basically look for the opening like the casual way and just get through it. Because there was always an opening in the somewhere in the ball's attack. But otherwise, if you have the HP, just damage boost through it. If you have a lot of cards, which by the way, I didn't mention this on the rabbit, but the ideal dream scenario for the rabbit is you have 5 cards when you end the rabbit. But anything that's like 4 cards or over, you're happy, which is what I had in this case. I had a little bit over 4. That's still good. So like 4 to 5 cards is what you want going into Piruletta. Because if things work out really well, which in this case they won't because it looks like I missed my opening EX by shooting it too far back. You can kill her before, like after the ball's attack's done, but before she charges at you. But if you're not really confident in that, especially if you're at 1 HP, you can take a parry, which is what I'll do here, and kind of get over her. So I'll show what that all looks like. You can take this parry, and then just do something like this to finish her off. This was a really low DPS bad example of doing the fight quickly, but on it is a good example of how to handle that when you only have 2 HP going into this. So on this, I'm basically just going to be setting up a lobber trap, and I'm going to be trying to parry him slightly after the clap to hit a 2 or a 3. And then after that, you basically just spread shot him a bunch, get a spread EX if you can, while taking the parries, and yeah, I go from there. So set up a lobber trap, get it right after, a little bit after the clap. If you have a lot of cards, you can spin them. Go for a spread EX if you can, if not, depends on where the parry of the card is. And he should die soon. Sometimes he will get a little bit of cards here. Depends on how many EXs you had coming into this. But yeah, it's not too big of a deal either way. He's pretty straightforward ending. Just lobber trap him, shoot him down with spread. You can also damage boost through the cards. If you have a ton of extra HP, you can basically skip one of the parries and get hit by the cards, fall through, jump up, parry again. That way you can, because you touch the ground, you can get another spread EX that way. So it's a very small optimization if you just have a ton of HP, which sometimes you do. Now, there is one more mechanic before I go over the rabbit and Piruletta in more detail and show the videos and everything. There is one more optimization I just want to talk about. And that's the fact that on this scoreboard, you can get 0 out of 3 HP. Now, how this works is, so the scoreboard normally, like right now, the scoreboard, if I won this fight, it would say 3 out of 3 HP. But the game isn't actually checking how much HP you have. It's checking how many times you've gotten hit while at 3 HP or less. So if I get hit right now, I would go to 2 HP. So now the game's HP bonus would be 2 out of 3. But if I took a bonus heart on King Dice, so I go from 2 HP to 3 HP, the HP bonus would still think it's 2 out of 3 HP. And so abusing this, you can set up a 0 out of 3 HP on the scoreboard. The easiest way to do this is, and really the only realistic way to do this, is you need a heart on 5 or a heart on 7. Because what will happen is you'll go into Cigar with 3 HP, right? Let's just say there's no bonus heart like it is here. You'll go in at 3 HP. You'll get hit. And you'll go to 2 HP. You'll go to Rabbit. Let's just say you don't get hit. You're still at 2 HP. Then you go to Piruletta. I'd heal back up to 3 HP in this case. And then I would tank 2 hits on Piruletta, for example. Or 1 on Piruletta and then 1 on King Dice at the end. And And that means that I've gotten hit 3 total times while I was at 3 or less HP. And so this will like -1 each hit. And so I'll end up with 0 out of 3 HP on the scoreboard, which will save about 0.8 seconds. Now, if you get a heart on Cigar, this is kind of weird because you'll go up to 4 HP, and when you get hit while you have 4 HP, it does not subtract from the HP bonus. So if I go up to 4 HP, get hit while having 4 HP, I'll go down to 3 HP, but my HP bonus will still be 3 out of 3. It won't get -1. So there is sometimes, like let's say you have hearts on all of these spaces, for example, like 3, 5, and 7. You can actually just set here and tank an extra hit on Cigar to go down to 2 HP. Because you know you're going to get healed twice here, and getting hit down to 2 HP in this case will get your HP bonus to 2 out of 3, and then as you collect hearts and take more hits, you'll easily be able to get down to 0 out of 3 HP. So I know that's slightly complicated, but the bottom line is, like, if you have a heart on 5 or 7, then you are able to get the 0 out of 3 HP bonus just by tanking some hits. But yeah, that's just a mechanic to keep in mind. And now let's move on into the clips to kind of show off some optimizations here for the harder parts of the fight. All right, so I wanted to show this optional advanced strat you could do here on the rabbit. So you'll notice that I start off pretty similar, but then there's a parry. Now, what I'd like to do for this strat in particular is I like to just stay on the card, shooting lobbers like normal until I get the first parry, and then I go in. So I get the first parry. As soon as I get that done, I go in. And the idea is that, so the hat here, you could shoot lobbers through the hat and it'll hit the rabbit, but spread bullets are blocked by the hat. Lobbers are not, spread is. It's pretty weird, but that's how it works. So what you're going to do is you're going to shoot some lobbers, and then like right after you let out a lobber while jumping, you're going to switch to spread and get a little bit of spread. You can also go for a EX. And then when the skulls are centering in, you could kind of like move back. You see how I noticed I moved back a bit here? In this case, I was able to use the EX, and I also tried to move a tiny bit left. You want just a tiny bit of space between you and the rabbit, so you can still hit him with upright lobbers, but also you have some space to breathe, so you can still do this jump up and right through the skulls, like we do here on the card, but we're just doing that right in front of the rabbit. And then you could also use an EX to hover. Now, if I didn't want to use an EX in this case, and I was back far enough, you can still land down here and be safe. So you don't. It is much harder without an EX to not get hit, but it is possible. This strat also, like if you have no bonus hearts on King Dice, this strat is pretty dang scary. But yeah, the idea is that I'm going to shoot lobber, jump, and spread. When I'm waiting on the skulls, because I don't know exactly when they're going to lock in, I am going to set here and just shoot lobbers, because I don't want to be jumping up and shooting spread while the things are spinning, because then they might lock in a weird spot and get me hit. And then if you have an ideal ending here, you'll get the second set of parries, and you can finish him off with an EX if you need to, but you also can just kind of gun him down with spread like I did here. So let's see that in real time, and then we'll move on to Piruletta. But yeah, this is a really aggressive strat. You really need to be confident with your lobber cooldown management and with these this kind of micro positioning up close to, give yourself the openings you need. There's just a lot of weapon cooldown management. You're also trying to set up your Calva swaps, like set up your lobber cooldown efficiently for that. Now, if the parries, by the way, were in the other order, this still works. So if you had the top row parries first, what I talked about earlier, you could just jump instant parry. You miss that parry and they start coming down, you could drop through the card, jump parry, and then you can still move forward. Now, the one awkward thing is if you do get another set of parries, it will always be the other side. So if you had the upper parries, it'll be the lower parries next. And if you get those and you're up close, what you can do is you could wait until right before you think the rabbit will shoot, and then you just jump and hover with an EX to stall in the air, and then the parries will actually become, or the like his things will actually become active, including this up close parry, and it'll come up, and you can basically parry it right after your Calva swap EX. So that is something you can do. If you're not confident with that, or you want to preserve the card or whatever, if you see those lower parries coming in, you could also just like shoot a lobber and then jump back up on the card, and then flick a lobber and just go back into your normal position on the card. So that's kind of some stuff you could do for that. But yeah, let's move on to Piruletta. All right, so Piruletta could do two things, as I talked about earlier. I'm going to show you the more optimal RNG here and show you kind of what to do. So you can see I shoot these two lobbers. See, I walk closer than I did earlier. And then on this tile here, I'm going to shoot this EX to get it to blow up right in front of her. Then you could shoot a couple more lobbers. I jump with spread because you could see it spreads out in a very good way so that all the bullets will hit her. If I just walked over to her, then these lower bullets would hit the ground. So it's similar to like root pack, the potato kind of. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be trying to position for triples. Also on that lobber, like I am thinking about obviously the up and coming Calva swaps and such. So the positioning here is a little bit tricky. It's hard to see here, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the outer part of her shadow here to touch your toes, basically. Where they're kind of like right next to each other. If I overstep my foot onto her fully extended like shadow here, then that's too close. But if you're just right against it like this, so they're like touching, then that's a good spot to be at for getting for some triples. Now, what I've tried to do here is, if you feel you have the time, you can go for an extended delay here. So basically, I do the Calva swap. I stay on lobber for so long where I let one out, wait a bit, and then switch to spread. This is to set up these next Calva swaps. And my goal here, in this case, I didn't wait or delay quite long enough, so I barely missed the lobber here. Unfortunate. But my goal here is I get that one EX at the start on this tile here. And then I go up and I'm trying to get two before the balls hit me. You don't need to rush this much. Especially if you don't have, like in this case I had full cards, but if you have less cards, you could just go for one on this tile and then one up close and then get hit and go for the rest. But I like to do it in this order, especially when I have a lot. So then I get hit, and then I'm trying to position again to go for these EXs. I was actually, this one I got an actual proper extended delay. I was cutting these really tight. But yeah, you can see like I'm always trying to get right up on that shadow. That was a triple there. So I guess the tip of your toe can be like right on the shadow, and that's a good spot too. I think there's like 2 pixels there that work. When your foot barely touches the fully extended shadow, or it's like 1 pixel on it, it's still good. And then if you have a lot of cards and you get a lot of triples and do good DPS, you can get a very fast fight. This is a sub 11 fight. So let me show that in kind of what it looks like in real time. Also, I'm pulling up this menu. If you have the debugger, you can use like the like, what is that, a / button. And it's like a level selector. So, and it's kind of weird how it works with King Dice. How I like to set this up is to practice this fight, because this fight you want to take some damage boosts and stuff sometimes. And basically what you're gonna do is get to the amount of hearts that you want, then load into any stage on King Dice. So like, for example, I could just keep pressing R on the keyboard, keep retrying until I get like a heart on 3 or something, I could load into that space, get a heart, so now I have 4 HP, and then at that point, you could just use this menu and load into Piruletta, because it kind of like saves your HP or whatever, and your card value, so you could set up like the amount of cards you want going into Piruletta, and you'll basically be full setup, and then you could just keep selecting Piruletta, and then anytime you beat her or want to retry, just use this menu before loading back into the Dice Palace, because once you load back into the Dice Palace, like if I beat Piruletta and wait, and let it load me back into the Dice Palace, it like updates Cuphead's like stats, how much HP, how much cards he has, and that'll mess you up. But if you beat her and then immediately open this menu and go back into Piruletta, you could kind of like keep practicing her without having to set up your card count and HP every single time. It'll be like preset from like where you set it earlier. But anyways, that's just like a practice note. You could do that. And yeah, let's see what this looks like here. So gonna go for that there. And yeah, you could just kind of take her out. It is tough to get these extended delays. If you don't want to go for those, you can also go for a full delay and then a G swap in between each EX. Or the easiest way to do it, that's if you just want to focus on the positioning and those delays are too specific, you can go for just half delays, just very standard half delays on your Calva swaps. And it's still not bad. You don't lose that much DPS doing that. And it's much easier to keep mentally track of. But if you do want to maximize your damage, either extended delays or full delays plus a G swap is going to give you the most damage. It does make the timing tight to kind of line up everything. All right, so I wanted to show the other RNG here. If she charges, and this is doing 1 damage boost. So it's the same idea. You're gonna do a couple lobbers, get onto this tile here, shoot a lobber EX. And then she's going to start charging at you. Now, at this point, this is where you react. Instead of moving in forward, you could just go for a downright lobber EX. In this case, I actually hit a triple. This is pretty unlikely, but you do want to get this EX off pretty dang quickly to hit it on the ground before she bonks into you. So then I bonk. I'm just trying to hit some spread, and then I hit another triple here. This is a pretty unlikely clip. But yeah, you just want to get this lobber EX off ASAP, basically. And don't be too far over to the left. Then you could take this parry. So I'm doing this in 1 damage boost. And then when you take this parry, you want to do a downright lobber EX, because it'll basically chase after her and blow up on the ground next to her. If you just parry this chip specifically and then immediately do a downright EX, it generally lines up pretty well. It's kind of hard to time. Now, this is actually really hard. Like, this RNG is way harder. So, right before she gets to me, I'm going to jump and do this down flick lobber. Pretty weird. And then, after I get over her, I'm going to look left, parry this chip, and then I'm going to do the same thing, kind of a similar thing I did here. I'm going to do this down left EX to snipe her right here. Keep shooting lobbers, do the same thing in reverse here on the other side. And yeah. This is extremely unlikely to get this good of a time on this. You can see I hit like a bunch of kind of basically super lucky triples, because timing that's pretty unrealistic. But yeah, you can get pretty good times. If I didn't kill her here, I would just repeat the same thing over and over from side to side until she stops moving. Once she stops moving, I would just walk up and spread shot her. And if you have cards left, you can also use EXs. You just want to kill her ASAP using these EXs on the ground next to her for those double or triple damage. But yeah, let me show this in full time. And then I'll show some backups if you only have 1 HP coming into Piruletta, which that does happen sometimes, unfortunately. And it's pretty dang bad, but it's still good to know the backups. But yeah, this is actually really hard to get used to. It's pretty awkward, but it does have a nice flow once you get used to that movement pattern there. So you might have to watch that over several times to figure that out, and it might take a bit to learn. But yeah, it's definitely something worth learning. But yeah, I'm gonna just show a couple backups now, and then we'll get into the into Devil after. All right, so I recorded a couple backups here for each situation. Now imagine I'm 1 HP here. I'm gonna go for the same opening. Now this EX, you do have to be cautious, and you notice how I take this parry instantly. The reason is because if she charges forward, you need to do this really quickly, or you will just get hit and die. So I'm basically taking this parry as a precaution against the other RNG that I might get. So if I'm at 1 HP, I don't want to just rely on a 50-50 to survive. In this case, I didn't need the parry, so I just used that to go forward and get some spread. I'm gonna try to get off those other two EXs really quickly because I have the cards. Then I'm gonna do this part right here where you can see after the EXs, I'm gonna do flick lobbers to get away from the balls, and I'm gonna be looking for the opening. So I see that the opening is right here, and I'm gonna flick lobber around to that spot. And then what I like to do is go for some lobber EXs here with some same weapon Calva swaps. Just you know, you probably only have time to get a couple off. And then what you could do is jump up here and take this parry, and then kind of like back this up into the similar idea that you do for the charge first RNG, where I'm just going to do this loop back and forth over and over. And you can still get a reasonably good time here. I'm sure you could get quite a bit of time, like quite a bit of a better time. Probably even like 12 seconds if you hit like a bunch of triples and stuff. But, you know, this is just a backup, so I wanted to kind of show what this looks like. Here as it is in full real time. No pauses. Do those flick lobbers, find the opening, get a couple more EXs off, get up on this chip, gun her down, and then, yeah, then you're basically into the charge world. So yeah, that's that one. Now let's see what happens when you have 1 HP against the charge RNG, which is quite a bit scarier. All right, here's the 1 HP backup for the charge RNG. So you're going to see me do something similar here on the opening. I walk up. I'm going to go for this EX pretty early onto that tile because, like I said, you need to go for this parry instantly because if you get this RNG, you're just going to get hit if you don't go for that instantly. Also, if you are too scared, like, because that is pretty tight, you can skip the opening EX if you're at 1 HP and you're really scared, and you could do the rest of this all exactly the same way. But I wanted to kind of show like a good way to do it there. Now there I was on spread. I could have already switched to lobber and did a flick lobber there. So I could have gained 1 lobber, but that is really hard to do. You can do it, but yeah, the reason I didn't there is just because simply it's really hard as a backup when you're trying to react to this stuff. And then yeah, you're gonna go for this. Now you're just in basically the normal charge territory where you're gonna do these down flick lobbers, get on the other side, take the parry, do an EX, diagonally down EX, and you're just going to rinse and repeat this until she's done. Now, she can stop there. If she does stop here, like after that amount of like charges back and forth, she can stop. You could just go up spreader, do a downright EX, and then she'll have the balls. If she's still not dead somehow, you could just start doing the same thing we do on the previous backup with the spin first. You could just do flick lobbers and move back, find the opening. And yeah, I mean, it's the same attack, so you can imagine it's the same backup. But yeah, you can get a decent time with this too. So that's why, like, this is really scary. But even if you get no bonus hearts at all, so you tank a hit on Cigar, guaranteed, you go to 2. Let's say you make a mistake on Rabbit, you go to 1. You could still get a pretty good Piruletta time. Like low 15-second, 14-second kind of time is possible, even on 1 HP. Now, this is me coming into the fight with 5 cards. If I only had like 4 cards, which is going to happen sometimes, it's going to be less. If you have less than 4 cards, that probably means you screwed something up and you need to look into your card management on the Rabbit. But yeah, I would just do that. One other really random thing I forgot to mention, I'm just gonna add in here. Well, let's watch this in full time, and then I'll mention something else here. So yeah, the scariest part about this is the opening. Just not dying immediately. All this is actually pretty scary, to be honest. But once you get the flow of those, like flick lobber as you jump over and then you take the parry, it's not too bad. But yeah, the thing I wanted to mention is way back, if you remember the Cigar, I was going for those triples, and I was doing those like jumps to keep myself from falling in the pit. If you're not comfortable lining that up, you can also just do straight down lobber EXs. fact, it's pretty decent strat to just do 3 lob EXs straight down instead of going for 2 triples. This will still basically guarantee you a kill. If you go for 3 like doubles instead of going for 2 triples. But I kind of recommend learning the triples. But yeah, I just wanted to mention, like, if you are struggling with that, you can do the straight down EXs and it's okay. But if you do use 3 on Cigar, you need to be extra conservative on the Rabbit. Really don't EX unless you need to. Because it is actually super big deal to have 4 or 5 cards going into Piruletta. You can do it with less. You could just take out some of these EXs that I'm doing, and everything else will still flow the same. But it just speeds up the fight really quick and gives you some potential nice kills. So yeah, that's just some like card management things I wanted to talk about. So yeah, overall, it's King Dice is a pretty interesting fight. It is stressful on nerves, especially if you don't get bonus hearts. If you get bonus hearts, that alleviates it some. But all in all, it's not too complicated of a boss. It's just, there's 3 mini bosses and then King Dice himself. There's also the dice rolling to worry about. So it does have a little bit of a steep learning curve, but it's not like it's the worst boss or anything. Speaking of the worst bosses, though, we do have the Devil coming up. Yeah, the Devil, he's he's no joke. But yeah, we'll switch over into that now. All right, you've made it here to the very end, and it's time for the final battle. This boss, the Devil, he's no joke. Thankfully, I would say he's not too bad to initially learn. And to start getting reasonably good times at. To fully optimize him on all RNG, because he has a lot of patterns, a lot of randomness. I believe more than any other boss. Fully optimize everything. He is the most complex boss in the run, I'd say. So much to the point where I won't even be able to go over everything in this video. I don't even know, like, I haven't come up with all of the strats for certain specific RNG, which I'll explain that later, because especially with the spider, you really get into a lot of variants and different strategies. However, I'm going to start off by just showing you and explaining you all the general things about the Devil so you could start speedrunning him. Then afterwards, I'm going to show you on the dragon attack, or some people might refer to it as the snake. I'm going to show you on that specifically how on certain patterns you could set up a glitched Devil to get a faster time, called like the Devil Freeze or whatever. And then afterwards, I will explain some stuff about the spider, but I'm not going to go into super detail. Now, another thing I'm going to do is in the video description below, I'm going to include a video where I compiled all my best times, and a few extra just fights for use as reference material. So if you are wanting to learn, really start picking apart these individual patterns on the Devil, and learning them all, or trying to figure out how to handle them, that video can serve as an additional resource beyond this tutorial to kind of look at and see how I might go about these different things. That being said, this tutorial will cover a lot and all the general stuff you're going to need to know for this epic ending to a run. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, one thing I will say, the RNG control here is incredibly useful. So hopefully you have this mod installed at this point. And just to start off, for simplicity's sake, on phase 1 pattern, select clap 2. And how this works is it just scrolls down through the things, like pretty much most of Cuphead RNG works this way. So if you start on clap 2, the next attack will be head 2, and then clap 3, etc. All right, so the head attacks are either the dragon or the spider. The clap's always just the clap. The pitchfork is either the bouncer, which is the bubbles, and then the 2 different flame attacks. that's pretty much all you need to know there. A lot of this other stuff isn't too relevant. The spider hop count and spider offset will be relevant once we get to the explaining some of the spider stuff, but for now, it's not too important. So all you really need to do is set this to clap 2 and set this to dragon. And this will give us a decent starting point here. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first thing you want to do here is you want to jump, shoot him with a lobber, and then instantly switch to spread.
A great slam and then stop.
And then you just want to keep trying to hit him with spread the best you can. Now, this clap here, you basically can't... He has like a random delay before he claps. Like once he starts prepping the clap, there's a random delay before he actually does the clap. And it's actually pretty much too fast to actually react to. So what I generally try to do is I just try to do a jump that will avoid the earliest possible clap. And if he does it later, I could do what I did here, where I just dash away. Now, because clap's the first move, I don't have an EX. For certain patterns, you might use an EX to hover, although eventually you're not really going to EX the head, except on like exactly a couple patterns, which I think would be like dragon into clap or spider into clap. On those patterns, you might actually use an EX to hover and hit him to just stay above the clap move. Otherwise, either just tank the hit, which I don't really recommend, but you could do it in some cases. Tank the hit or dash away, unless that you see that you jumped right before the clap hit you, and then that means that you can get a damageless jump. Because you won't need to dash or EX, you'll just avoid the clap by having like a perfect time jump. You could kind of recognize that, and you'll know you got it if like basically you jump and the clap almost hits you as you jump, and you just like barely avoided it. Then as long as you're in the center, you won't get hit by the clap on the way down. But yeah, as I'm moving away, another thing I like to do is when I'm out of position like this, I like to switch to lobber to buffer a lobber, so that when next time I jump up at him, I can hit him with a lobber and use spread. Now, you could use this at basically any time that you're needing to, like, dodge out of the way of the imp a little bit, or you need to dodge, like, some flame attacks or bubbles, whatever. You could use this method. So I'm just going to switch the lobber there, buffer it, shoot it in. Like, right there, I did another lobber. Okay, so once you get the snake, what you want to do is you want to start setting up a lobber trap. You can also have the lobber trap kill the imp if there is an imp. You can also use spread shot to kill the imp if he's right in your way. Kind of mess that up. But yeah, just set up a lobber trap. And then this is like a really important and subtle detail. Notice his neck. You see how it's bending up and to the right ever so slightly. It's bending just up and to the right, like it's going this way. That means he's going to bend around this side. If the neck was bending to the left, up and to the left slightly, he'd come around this side. So that's how you can know, like, almost instantly if the stake's going to be on the left or right. And this can be relevant for some strats later. Now, what we're going to do is as he moves in, we're setting up this lobber trap for him. But we're also going to shoot him with some spread shot. And he's going to curve up, and we're going to go into the opening. And this opening is a really great safe spot to continually shoot him with spread. But it also puts you above some double stacked ground, which will allow you to hit some quad damage lobber EX. There is, where I'm pointing here, there is double stacked ground around here. Like this range that I'm moving back and forth on, and over here. So if he came from the other side, he would do the same thing mirrored. He'd come in and he'd travel up, and you would get in on the opening here, and this is also just happens to be on double stacked ground. Now, in the opening that he creates, if you go to the very, very back edge, you might be too far away that you're not over the double stacked ground. Let me see if maybe the debugger, I'm not sure if the debugger is good at showing this. It kind of is, actually. You can see this. See this extra like rectangle? This is the double stacked ground. And there's one right here as well. So these are the spots where if a Lobber EX explodes on this ground next to the devil, you'll hit for quadra damage. Because the Lobber EX is basically, it thinks it's hitting 2 sources of ground at the same time. So it causes 2 double damage Lobber explosions. It's similar to like the Lobber EXs we did on Wormin to get quad damage, except these are much easier because you have a huge range here to hit these quad damage EXs. It is possible to hit if you also angle them in such a way that it barely clips the devil. You can, in some rare cases, hit 5 times damage EXs too. I'm pretty sure I've seen 1 or 2, but they seem very rare. So, there's not like a consistent pixel or anything that I've ever been able to find. And honestly, in a lot of the setups for the devil, having like a random 5 times damage EX versus a guaranteed 4 times damage would throw off your like some damage calculation stuff that you'll have to do later on, which I'll explain to you when we get to the devil freeze stuff. So even if there was a 5 times damage spot, it would only be useful in a few patterns. I wouldn't really worry about it. I'd just make sure that you're blowing up the EX on these good spots of ground. So yeah, I'm just gonna shoot him. And then once I'm gonna get off as many EXs as I can. In this case, because he did the snake attack really early. If he does the snake attack 3rd or 4th, you might have to worry about soft locking. Soft locking occurs when you kill his phase 2. So not this first phase run here, but this next chunk here. If you kill his phase 2, before he's done with phase 1, it will soft lock the game. So that's something to be aware of. You don't generally have to be worried about this. Never in any circumstance ever try to go for 5 quads damage Lobber EXs. 4 is the max you'd ever want to go for in any situation. Except for, well, yeah, on Snake, that's true. And just be wary that if you do this on a pattern where the Snake is like the 4th or 5th attack, you could get punished in soft lock. So, but we'll get into more about the devil like damage thresholds later on. But even if you're not going for the you're not learning the devil freeze yet, that's something to be aware of, that you can over damage him here. So it's something to take note of in practice and figure out like, hey, I shouldn't go for this many quads here because it soft locks. But yeah, we're just gonna do this and get in here and do some spread shots, and then go for as many quads as I can. In this case, I might be able to get 2 off. Now, for this, I like doing EXs towards the center, like diagonally down EXs towards the center, because this will also, when you do Calva swaps, it'll bounce a little Lobber and hit him. I do want to say, if you have, like, in this case, like, very few EXs, you have the time to go for an extended delay, if you really want to, or a full delay plus a G-swap. Because you have enough time to do all these cooldown things, because I only have a couple EXs I need to get off. But in general, you're in a rush for this, and you might also be there might be an imp around that you need to deal with, like, in the middle of it. Like, very quickly, either with the splash damage of a Lobber EX, or quickly shoot him with spread in between your EXs. And in those cases, you're not going to have time to do all this Lobber cooldown management. So what I like to do is just half delays in those cases. But here, I've got all the time in the world. I already cleared the imp out, and I can go for these extended delays just to get very slightly better DPS. Then, once the stake is going to flatten out, you can either crouch under him to not get hit, or you can get slightly more damage and damage boost through him. In general, when you're starting off, I don't recommend, like, I would take the damage boost if you're at 3 HP, but for, like, your just general pattern where you're not setting up a freeze or anything, and you're actually going to have to play the regular phases of the fight out, I would try to preserve up 2 HP just because it's going to make it a lot more consistent for you. So in this case, I'll just not take the damage boost and duck under him. Okay. You can see, too, like, while I was out of position, I did a flick lobber to chase after him. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to position about here. I like to always do it on the left side. Sometimes you could do it on the right. The positioning here doesn't matter super a lot. The main thing is we just want to be able to dash into the hole as soon as he's going into the pit. So, like, right about now, as he's going into the pit, I would dash into the hole. And one thing you're going to do is when you fall into the hole, you're going to move right a bit. You can see how I'm zooming out here so you can see better. You can see how I'm to the right of the hole. This is about the position you want. So I like to dash into the hole and then move right, and I see my character move here, and then I let myself fall. You could even be, I think, slightly more to the right of this, and it's fine, but this works. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to spread shot, and I'm going to shoot down. This is an opening I actually didn't know about until, like, pretty recently. So even in the devil footage that you'll see that I told you I would reference some, I didn't even know about this in some of the clips. But I used to go for some scuffed lobber setup where you could sometimes get a miracle lobber to hit the devil. But yeah, basically we're going to fall straight down. And you can see the devil's actually down here. And so we moved a little bit to the right because we're trying to line up with this eyeball. Cuphead actually falls straight down through the devil's eye, and he keeps falling down. And then the game basically detects at a certain point. I think it's once the camera's catching up, and that it like repositions everything, like magically teleports everything around, and puts Cuphead in the like, oh gosh, it's the devil, I'm scared animation. But until that point, you're kind of just in free fall. And if you're aiming straight down in this position and shooting spread, you'll actually hit the devil a tiny bit on the way down. So this is something you could do to get just a slightly bit more damage. So I'll zoom back in here. I think that it's like here. Okay. So I'm gonna shoot some spread. Okay. Now, I don't know if pausing messed this up, but we're going to do an actual purposeful pause here. Okay. So, you see this this bit of this like rock formation here? This big rock formation that sticks out pretty far. I'm looking for this rock formation, and I want to pause my game before the camera starts getting over it. So about here, I could do it slightly later, where the camera came slightly down more, and it would be okay. But this is about where you want to pause. This is for the geo buffer strategy, and this will allow us to skip this cutscene. So I like to pause there, and then in general circumstances, what you want to do. Oh, actually, this is an important note that I forgot to mention that can catch people off guard. It's one of those subtle things I forget to talk about. But you know how earlier we were falling through the devil and using spread? After you're done using spread on him, so you'll hear it hit him and you'll see your cards go up a little bit. Once that's happened, you want to switch to lobber and hold down right before you do this pause. Anytime after you've hit the spread and before you do this pause, like it's a pretty big window. You want to make sure you're holding down right and you switch to lobber. This is going to set you up for a double or triple damage lobber EX on the devil, which is what we're going to do right here. So as soon as we unpause, we're going to EX while holding down right still. Okay. So once you do that, Cuphead can also just kind of start moving, so you're going to need to be prepared to jump because we're going to be moving to this middle platform like right away. Also, you can do a same weapon Calva swap. I find it really hard to get the extra lobber from that to ever actually hit, but it is something worth looking into. It also can mess with your consistency, because if you mess up the timing and get a nothing or something, it could be really bad. So it was something I wasn't going for the longest time, but I do think it's something you could experiment with if you and see if you can get that extra lobber to work more often. But yeah. So that's a whole lot of information. Now, with that geo buffer, if you paused way sooner, like even a decent bit sooner, it can mess up the geo buffer and like put you into this weird like floating state and stuff. And there's like no reason to wait any longer. So that visual cue that I showed you is pretty important. For specifically the Devil Freeze, there's a slightly different timing to the EX instead of doing it as soon as you unpause. But we'll talk about that once we get to the Devil Freeze. Now this phase, we're gonna be just shooting Devil with spread the best we can. Also notice how his eyes have separate hitboxes. These are true separate hitboxes, which means if you could somehow get a Lobber EX to splash on both of them, it will hit for double damage. And there is some ways to do that. When he's doing his that attack with the axe, as the eyes get closer, a well-timed Lobber EX can do that. Also, if these ledges are raised, you can get a double damage EX the normal way. You can see this ledge here. If I blew up a Lobber EX, it would hit this eye for double damage. So that's a couple ways to get double damage. There's also some miracle timings where like this ledge will be raised up and he'll be closing in for the axe attack. And if you get a perfectly timed Lobber EX on this ledge as it's raised up and as his eyes are closing in, you could get a quadra damage EX. These are kind of some very improv things, but I just wanted to make note of them. Also, don't be afraid to use flick lobbers to if you do have to move away from the devil or chase after like a parryable or something. You can flick lobbers as you turn away, but in general, you're just going to be going for spread shot. You can also opt for some spread EXs. Sometimes you might throw in one, especially if you have like a lot of cards and you just need to get out some cards. Spread EXs are better than Lobber EXs if you're not in a position where you can get a double damage Lobber EX. Otherwise, though, save your cards for the next phase because we're going to be going for some more guaranteed double damage Lobber EXs that I'll talk about once I get there. So yeah, just track him. Get the parry. Try not to get hit like I did. Okay. So try to jump up. Also, be wary of the poker chips. The poker chips, how they work is they kind of just start somewhere. And they just kind of rotate through. So like they'll rotate from here to here to here to here to here to here, back over to here to here. They basically wrap around, or they can start on the other side and they'll just go like this way, over and over. And they have a very consistent timing and delay in between each one. That's just something to be aware of. Now on these eyes, I want you to pay attention to something. See how they're shifting back and forth? So these eyes are actually, they're not naturally close enough for a Lobber EX to blow up and hit both of them. But what you can do is when the devil's in exactly this position, right? So he's looking to the right. If a Lobber EX hits this eye at this moment, what will happen is your Lobber EX will explode right here, or maybe it'll have to chase after this eye a little bit and hit it like here or something. Either way, it's fine. Anyways, you're going to blow it up here, and because he's in this position, that means he's about to look the other way, and so this eye is going to start moving this direction. And what'll happen is because you have the Lobber EX here, the lingering explosion frames will still be around just long enough that this eye is going to shift over into it and get hit as well. And this gives you some guaranteed double damage Lobber EXs. Now, while you're doing this, in terms of Caliva swaps, you can either go for a half delay or a no delay, fall down, do a G swap at the bottom of your jump back up, and then go for the next one. And you want to try to loop these and get as many of them in as you can, because he's going to stop shifting his eyes back and forth once the little minions come on screen. Like sometime as the minions come on screen or after they come on screen, he'll stop doing this eye shifting back and forth, and you'll lose your ability to get the double damage lobber EXs for a bit. So it's good to get these off as soon as you can. So that's what the timing looks like. Now, if you basically run out of time and you still have EXs, you can go for some spread EXs. Now here, you want to jump up and try to shoot him. I did die, and also I do have the pointer on screen. Disaster! But yeah, let's redo the fight and kind of rehash, like re-go over all the stuff that we just looked at, and then I'll talk about the last phase a bit more. I feel like it'll be a good reminder. I'll leave the hitboxes on too, just so you can see what that looks like. So I did do a dash there, do a flick lobber. Do a lobber trap, kill the imp. Here I'll take the damage boost because I had the health. Kind of messed up my DPS there. Pretty bad DPS, but that's okay. Dash into the hole, move right a bit, shoot spread down. I hit the devil. I'm holding down right and lobber. I didn't mean to pause this early. I was just trying to explain things. Pause there. Actually, I paused too soon. Kind of threw me off. And this is what happens. Everything's just messed up. Also, I just realized that's important to note. You really want to make sure you have a card for this so that you could do the Geo Buffer and use a EX to break free. But yeah, in this case, we'll just keep it going so I can explain stuff. Okay, here I can go for a double damage EX that way. You can also track him, like jump back and forth between platforms. There's a lot of different improv you could just learn, but basically just track him with spread shot the best you can. This is really good when the platform comes up. So in this position, his eyes are actually close enough together, his hitboxes, that if you hit a lobber EX on the very edge of one of the eyes, the explosion will reach the other side and you'll get a double damage. So, also, I'm just gonna, before I do that EX to finish him off, the double damage EX, I'm just gonna show that some dodging things you could do here. So if the poker chip's falling down, you can jump here, like just right, and weave between the potential parry and the poker chip. You could even buffer a parry if you want. If you're really worried about messing up the, like if there might be a tier there. So if you get something like that, it's okay. And then you can finish them off, like go into the middle and do a lobber EX to get a double damage lobber EX. You can also hover with an EX like this in the middle spot to make the timing more lenient. But yeah, let's do a lobber EX here, double damage lobber EX, finish them off. So that would reach out and hit both sides there. So yeah, that's the start of explaining the devil. Let me use the level selector here so we don't have to go through all this cutscenes and stuff. Let's switch the RNG ever so slightly. Just to talk about some other things. So let's get Pitchfork. So we're gonna do Pitchfork 2, which the next attack will be Head, and we'll stick on Dragon. We'll leave Pitchfork at random too, just so we could talk about the different things. For the Pitchfork attacks, you're always gonna want to take the parry if you can. Which the only times you can't is sometimes on the bouncer attack, the parry will not come into your line, like come near you, and you're just gonna have to miss it. So yeah. So one thing you can do is, if you react very quickly, you could step ever so slightly forward towards where the devil's gonna be and instantly go for an up and then down lobber EX to hit some extra quad damage EXs. This can get you some sweet damage, because normally, like that strat I showed earlier where you get into that one like spot where he curves and gives you an opening, you're generally only gonna get 3 quads in that time period. it's going to be really hard to fit 4 in there, almost impossible. So it is better to go for 2 here and then go in the opening and get 2 more. Let me try that again because I kind of messed it up. I realized since making this tutorial, it's really hard to like pause, unpause, and then just try to make things work. Okay, that EX there was too close. But yeah, you gotta get the idea. I might have actually been slightly too late there. Let me try it another time here. Also, this can be really tricky with the imp. But this is important to practice. This attack's pretty difficult. Okay, it looks like at least one of those quads hit, maybe both. I didn't quite see on the damage. But yeah, you get the idea. If anything with those EXs, you want to shoot them sooner than what you'd think. You think they would just work when the devil's like much closer, but they don't. They just magically don't hit very well because of the way his jank hitbox works. In fact, let me do it again. Oh right, I actually think this hitbox mod might not show it. Let's look at that again, because this actually is pretty difficult. Yeah, that should have hit, for sure. Yeah, that definitely hit. So you can see I had to do those pretty dang early to get that double quad to hit, and then I went in there and went for some extra quads. Yeah, and unfortunately, this version of the hitbox debugger doesn't show the snakes hitboxes, which is unfortunate. There is an older version of the debugger that shows them, and it's very silly to see. But yeah, it's not too important. Just know that you have to, if you're going to go for that up and then down EX like that for the two quads right away, you have to do it quite a bit sooner than what you'd think. You basically need them to be blowing up like as his head is just getting there, and then you could go into the opening safely. All right, so let's try this again. But yeah, it can be pretty difficult to deal with these pitchfork attacks without losing a bunch of damage. And the biggest thing is just getting really comfortable with doing flick lobbers and kind of maneuvering around everything. Here I just went for 3. Unfortunately, I didn't really have time to set up the double quad there with when the imp was coming in. Sometimes it's just really tough. I probably could have went for it, but in this case, I just went for 3 quads, and that's okay too. And you know, if I had a flame attack, I would only have enough EXs to do 3 here anyways. But yeah, you see I got a lot of damage in. And now we'll go down here, show this phase again. There we go. Got a triple with that timing. Now, I just know that these EXs are a little bit late. So they probably weren't hitting as doubles. You can also do that, what I just did there, where you take a parry and chase up after them. If they shoot a parry like that, that's the dream. You could parry up there and then hit a double damage lobber EX, and like, because he kind of pulls his head back up and his eye hitboxes are really high up, and the parry also lets you get up there and get a bunch of good spread in, and the EX lets you hover in the good spot and while getting a double damage lobber EX. So that's like a really juicy situation to kind of be in. So yeah, for some of these other, that's most of the things, except for I haven't done any of the, actually, you know what? Let me talk about this real quick, because I realize, like, these are very confusing how these work. Let's go over him starting with one of these attacks, and let me just talk about these pitchfork attacks here. Okay. So for the bouncer, they're gonna kind of appear in just whatever spot and go off into some random directions, and they're just gonna bounce for a while. This is the most simple one. There's not much you need to know. The only thing that you need to know is if they happen to bounce it away where they stay on screen longer, this attack straight up does take longer. So this is the attack with the which has a huge time variance. Sometimes the attack's just gonna last like a few seconds longer than other times. And this is relevant to some patterns. Like sometimes because you get such an extended pattern, it might make it to where you get so much damage and you have to be worried about over damaging him and soft locking. Which, by the way, the soft lock. I'll show what that looks like. You can hear the devil scream. He's like, ah! If you hear that, you've soft locked. It's over. That means you've already killed phase 2. And this is what happens. You just fall in the pit and you can't do anything. Funny enough, while you're falling down, you can hit the devil for like a couple more points of damage, but it's not going to be enough to finish him off. So yeah, you just have to retry. But yeah, that was the bouncer. It's the simplest one. Let's do pinwheel next. The simplest one to explain. Disable 10 times damage. Okay, so this one thing you could do is even if there's a blue flame spawning exactly where I am, you could preemptively do a short jump with a buffered parry, and you'll parry that thing as soon as it spawns in.
This match will get red hot.
Without getting hit. Like that. That was the perfect RNG to show it. Now, what this wheel does is it just spins in one, it picks a direction, it spins in it, and then the center of it tries to chase you until it's done, and then it's just gonna head off screen. So right now it's heading off screen, so it's just gonna spin away from me.
A great slam and then stop. It's on.
But yeah, the center point that it spins off of, it's gonna chase you. See how it's chasing after me? And now it's starting to chase me like this. But at a certain point, it's just done and it's gonna head off after a certain amount of time. So this attack just feels really weird. And with the imp, you know, when you're dealing with the imp as well, it can be really hard to not get hit on this attack. So don't be afraid to dodge around. If you're really confident in your flick lobbers, you can keep up pretty good damage without getting hit sometimes.
Now go.
I don't recommend using EXs because you want them for the head attacks. So something like that. This is actually setting up a devil freeze because the damage was good enough. Which is actually, we're going to be talking about it soon, but here's a sneak preview. I actually triggered this a little late. It's pretty awkward positioning. But yeah, you are going to be learning how to do this soon enough and getting some really good times. But there's the sneak preview. But before we get fully to that, let's go over the ring here.
Good day for us. Well done.
One more pitchfork attack, and I want to talk briefly about the spider. So this, basically, it's gonna pick a flame at the topmost flame, and that's gonna shoot. And then it's gonna either pick counterclockwise or clockwise and start shooting the flames in that direction. If you like take a parry right away, like that's in the middle of the chain, you know, because that parry's not firing off, it'll feel like a weird delay until the next flame in the rotation will shoot. It's just kind of a weird thing, but yeah. You can see how, like, after that one, it basically pretends shoots this parry one because I already took it. There's just, like, a little bit of an extra delay before the last one shoots. But yeah, this is another one that's really hard to not get hit on. But getting hit, like, once in this phase is not that bad. So it's kind of whatever. Now, getting hit twice like that was actually incredible. I got hit there. That's where it gets really sketchy. In a situation like that, where everything went wrong, I should have just done an EX. I should have just given up and done an EX to hover, because I got, like, the absolute most delayed clap imaginable. And so even jumping late and dashing was not enough to keep me above that clap long enough. And so I should have done an EX instead, hover. So that's just kind of another, like, random point, especially when you're taking a lot of hits. That is a situation you can find yourself in. But yeah, you can see you could do something like that. You can see I kind of like tried to quickly deal with that imp. It would have been nice if I could keep from getting hit by him. But yeah, those are the kind of improvisation things you're just going to have to learn, because those imps can really mess with your EXs. Sometimes, like I said, you could have the Lobber EX splash damage kill them. Other times, you're just going to have to quickly flick some spread into them and take them out. Or like part of your Lobber trap can kill them, something like that. It's one of those things you're just going to have to get good at improvising with. Okay, so now let's talk about Spider. Now, Spider's very infamous in the speedrun, because this is essentially like basically on almost every situation, except for clap, pitchfork, clap. If you get this RNG with like the bubbles, you could skip. If you do enough damage, you could skip the head attack. Which you might not even want to do that if you're going for the Devil Freeze, because you can get a better time if you go for the Devil Freeze in that situation. But that's pretty much the only pattern that it's worth skipping the head attack, or could be arguably worth it if you're not going for Devil Freeze. In general, you're always going to deal with a head attack, and the head attack's a 50-50 between Dragon and Spider. Dragon, 95% of the time, is going to give you a faster time. Sometimes very considerably faster. We're talking like 12 seconds faster in some cases. So Spider is pretty infamous as being a run killer. But that being said, there has been a lot of innovation and work on the Spider in recent times. And we've come to find out there is at least some good scenarios for the Spider. They're just very hard to They're pretty rare, and they're very hard to see and very hard to play and to prepare for. But what I'm going to do initially here is I'm just going to show the very, very, very basics of the Spider, and then I'll talk about it in more detail later. I'm just going to give you like the quick version that like I'd recommend to the majority of runners to go for until you're like good at the rest of the game. You're like, you know what? I'm really good at every fight in the game. And every other RNG on Devil, like all the dragon patterns, everything. And now I would do Spider last, because it's a huge time investment to prepare for very crazy amount of patterns that you may never see. So it's just essentially a massive time sink to get super good at the Spider. It's something I never even fully mastered, because I was focused on getting good at everything else. So yeah, I'm just gonna give you the kind of the quick version. In general, this is how to play against the Spider version, and then we could talk about like the more advanced stuff later in case it does interest you. I will share my knowledge on it at the end of the video. So let's just set up Devil to start on Spider for now, so we could kind of get a feel for the Spider. So yeah. What you want to do is you want to pick this spot. Basically kind of like around, I guess this is like at Devil's foot. It's his left foot on the right side of the screen. And you just want to start setting up lobbers to trap the Spider. And you want to try to dodge the Spider when it falls down. And if you get cards, you want to try to, after you like dodge out of the way, you want to try to hit a Lobber EX so that it blows up on the ground next to the Spider for quad damage. You can also shoot a little bit of spread. Yeah, I think that Lobber EX was actually a little bit too far away. Now, the Spider can only hop a max of 5 times. He can hop 3, 4, or 5 times. Also, his positioning is random. There's actually 20 patterns, which we'll get into that in the more advanced Spider thing. But yeah, you're just hoping basically that he lands on your Lobber trap, and he lands in convenient spots for you to hit a quad damage EX. Now, if it's the first attack, you're obviously not going to have many cards. At best, you're going to get maybe 2 quads if he goes on for a while. You see, this is a pretty bad pattern. There was a quad. So yeah. You could also, like, especially if you're tanking hits or you're just not comfortable, because especially if the spider lands dead center in you, it's really hard to not get hit by the spider by just walking. So you can dash out of the way, too, to preserve HP. But yeah, pretty much, like, that's the spider. Obviously, like, let's say you get Pitchfork 2, which is going to be Pitchfork into the spider. So we'll give Pitchfork 2, and then we'll give Bouncer. So let's say we get a lot of cards. You can go for a lot more quads if you see the opening for it. And the same thing applies as with the snake. Just be oh, by the way, that's the Bouncer pattern where the parry never came in near me, so I just didn't get the parry. That's some rare RNG that can kind of screw you over, and there's not much you can do about it. You just kind of get one less parry. But yeah, back to the spider. All the things I talked about with the dragon applies here as well. So you can soft lock the devil if you're not careful. Especially if you get a really long pattern and the spider's at the end of it and he hops a whole bunch of times and lands on your lobbers. You need to be really careful with your quads and stuff and not go overdo it. So that's just something to be wary of with the soft locking. Okay. So you can see I was just trying to get as many quads in there as I could. I was able to get quite a bit off. And this, like, spider's going to lose you a lot of time, but just setting up a bunch of lobbers is basically as many as you can. How you set up the trap doesn't really matter in terms of height. As long as you just set up, like, you hop for the very first one for a bread and butter. The rest of it, you could even shoot the lobbers from the ground if you want. Although if you're shooting lobbers on the ground, they are slightly in front of you. Whereas if you're jumping, they're dead centered on you. So sometimes, like, if they're slightly in front of you, that might make them hit where they wouldn't, or make them miss where they would normally hit. So in general, what I like to do is I like to just do the bread and butter lobber trap. And then once the spider's real close, I'll shoot maybe the last one on the ground. But yeah, other than that, you're just going to walk out of the way, turn back into him and do a diagonally down EX, or even straight down EX some times. And that's going to get the job done. So yeah, that's basically it for Spider. Spider generally sucks. And, you know, you're not a Cuphead speedrunner until you start complaining about Spider at some point, right? But yeah, it could be a pretty brutal 50-50, but sometimes the Spider's not bad, and there is some hope for the Spider, which, like I said, I'll get into those things if you're interested later, but this is the general, like, improvisation that I recommend to start off with. Just set up lobber traps, try to hit him with quads. Be really wary of that spot that I'm moving to. That spot's super important. Like at his foot. Because if you're in a bad position, you're just gonna miss quads, like, and then it's gonna suck. I guess actually you can more line up with, like, his trident. I guess, or like at his toes. Like, around that spot is all good. Yeah, I actually didn't realize the trident's a pretty sweet spot to aim for. That's a really good visual cue. I didn't even realize that. But yeah, just hit quads how you can. If he's too far away, he's too far away. It is what it is. But yeah, his hitbox is also pretty weird, the Spider. I guess that's one more thing I could talk about. On the first fall, his hitbox is active the entire time. On the other ones, his hitbox doesn't become active until he touches the ground. Let me see if I can demonstrate this by pausing a lot. Yeah, see how the Spider's hitbox is fully loaded in this whole time? It also does flatten when it touches the ground too. So it gets a tiny bit wider for, like, a few frames when it touches the ground. Another just random thing. But yeah, notice how this time, see how there's no hitbox? Until he hits the ground when he does the squish. Then you get this wide hitbox, and then it goes back into the circle. That's just some random stuff to be aware of. Oh, and it disappears when he's near the top. You can see that. See, it's already gone. So that's just some random stuff to be aware of. But in general, the strat I showed you with the lobber trap and stuff, that's going to account for all that and work just fine. But yeah, this is the general overview of the devil. Like, all this information, you could take this, practice it, get good at these different phase 1 patterns, you know, pick any of these, practice on dragon or spider, you know, work on these different, getting used to these different attacks here. I wouldn't worry too much about the spider stuff yet. And just get good at the lower phase, and like you're pretty much good to go. Like you could get some awesome devil times without doing any kind of devil freeze. I've gotten as low as like a 47.8 or something without the devil freeze. That's a pretty extreme time where I got some really amazing RNG as well. But just saying, like, the potential is very high just with what I've showed you. However, there is something very cool you can do to save even more time, especially on some patterns, which we'll go over. And that's to get the devil freeze, where we're going to get the devil. I showed you a sneak preview of it earlier, but we're going to get him frozen down below, and it's going to allow us to hit some quad damage EXs. So, let's go over that, and then I'll end it off with, like I said, a little bit of spider talk, and then you'll be good to go. So, without further ado, let's switch over to talking about some devil freeze things. All right, so what I've decided to do here is pull up footage of all of the main ways to get the devil freeze, all the main patterns you can get it on, rather, to kind of talk about them and give you an idea of, you know, what to aim for, what to look out for, how it works, all that kind of stuff. Now, as you kind of go into this, you're going to just basically go for, you know, as much damage as you can. Also, this is Bubbles Clap Dragon is the pattern. So you're going to see it's going to start off pretty normal. And by the way, the goal of this, you can only get this freeze if the dragon's the third or fourth attack, except in the case of if you get Bubbles first, specifically, and it's a long Bubbles pattern, and then into the dragon. So in general, you're looking for the head attack to be the third or fourth attack. Also, anything I say, I'm going to be showing dragon patterns here, but you can technically replace the dragon with spider and just try to go aim for about the same amount of damage and quads and stuff. And it'll all like work out the same way. It's just obviously spiders, it's, you know, a completely different beast in terms of how to actually get that much damage in. But yeah, let's just keep going. Take that parry there. So yeah, this is Bubbles Clap Dragon. Now, card count here is really important. So you don't want to waste any random single damage EXs, and you want to really pay attention to your card count. Now, for this pattern, you can see as he's leaving, I just hit 5 cards. Now, what's a little bit weird, and you need to keep track of, is if you have like a super long Bubbles phase and you have really great DPS, you might hit 5 cards like a little bit sooner, right? And so you have to be a little bit careful, and just kind of try to mentally imagine how much like extra cards you would have generated. Like here, I almost did no more damage after hitting 5 cards, so I'm probably like 5.1 cards in reality. But we'll kind of talk about that later. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Just kind of try to take a mental note of, okay, I did like a good bit of damage past 5 cards, or just like a very tiny bit, or I just hit 5 cards, etc. So on this pattern, you can see I'm going for the lobber trap. I'm also taking note of the neck being turned up here, so I know he's coming to the right. And what I go for here, like I said, with these EXs, there's a lot of different ways you could go about them. I go for 1 EX there, I get into this spot, and I go for 2 more. So for this RNG, where I just hit 5 cards, I'm going to do a total of 3 quads. Damage boost through because I have the HP, do that flick lobber there. And now, this is kind of like really important. So notice his HP, 749. Our goal for the freeze is to get him close to triggering over to the next phase, but without actually triggering it. Because as you know, if we trigger this next phase too early, it will soft lock us. So we're basically trying to get him to a very specific point so that down below, when we do the geo buffer, where we do like the pause, unpause, and EX, we want that EX to trigger the next phase. Exactly that EX. And that's going to be what sets up the Devil Freeze. So the whole thing with this trick is having a very controlled amount of damage. So in this case, this was extremely close. Honestly, like, you do not want him to be this close. Because in a real run, you don't have this health bar and you can't know that he's this close. And so it's just an unnecessary risk. I could have easily held back like 30 damage and been okay here. But I want you to take note of my card count. So this is what it looks like on this pattern, Bubbles Clap Dragon, where I hit 5 cards right as he turned into the dragon. I only went a tiny bit over on damage. And then here, I'm kind of at like 3 cards and a third. It could have been much safer to be like just like 20% into this card, or this card here would have been a lot safer bet. But let's say that I actually shot him a decent bit more, like a couple more jumps worth of spread shot after hitting 5 cards. So basically I went over the damage of what the cards can hold. I would only go to 3 cards here, or very just shy of 3 cards if I had a ton of DPS. But in this case, I basically hit 5 right as he turned into the dragon. So it's okay. You want to go over 3 cards here. After doing, of course, the 3 quads. You don't want to do 4 quads. You don't want to do anything like that. Just go for 3. And this is going to set you up for this. So I guess really it's three quads and then 3 cards and then plus a little bit more. Unless, like I said, you shot him like at this point. See if I can find it here. Yeah, so at this point, if I hit 5 cards much sooner in his animation, then that's going to mean, like I said, I'm not generating cards, but I'm still dealing damage, and that's throwing off your damage tracking. And so at this point here, because I'd have to adjust my visual cue, and I'd have to go, okay, I've dealt a lot of extra damage that isn't represented in my card count, so I need to hold back damage and only generate exactly 3 cards. In some cases, if you have a crazy overdamage on that part, you might even go just shy of 3 cards, but in general, you know, for this 3 quad setup, you could probably go for 3 cards, visually, pretty safely. And in this case, like where I just barely got 5, you definitely want to go over 3 cards, because just 3 cards worth of damage is not going to be enough to trigger the glitch most of the time. Okay, so let's look at that again. And again, you could go, like, as long as you hit 3 quads, you can go about them any way you want, and sometimes you're going to have to do them in different ways just because of where the imp is. That's another thing, is sometimes these imps do get killed, and that's going to generate you cards without damaging the boss, and these kind of things can actually throw you off a tiny bit. In general, it's not going to be that much different from fight to fight, but that's why I go on the side of caution. In this clip, I didn't. In this, I got really close to the threshold, and I had the HP bar to see, which is, you know, makes it a lot safer. But in a real run, when you don't have this HP bar, you're going to have to rely on your damage tracking. And that's where, you know, you do want to be a bit cautious. And like I said, I wouldn't generate this many. I'd definitely, like, generate a bit less cards. I'd basically just go a little over 3 cards on this pattern in a real run. So then you're going to go in here. You're going to do your damage, same as normal. And you can see I'm also still pausing right before this bit here hits the top of the screen. Now, one thing I'm going to do different is when I'm not going for the freeze, I unpause and I immediately EX. But what this does is we're going to be freezing the devil in place. And so the timing of this EX is going to determine at what spot on the screen he's frozen in place. And that's going to determine how good of DPS we can keep on him. Now, I have seen people that, like, have had some success triggering him super low, but I didn't like that too much for me, so I'm just going to show you the setup that I found was pretty consistent for me. But just know there is a lot of like different positions you could get him at, and you could kind of experiment and see what you like. But yeah, you can see I unpause and I just kind of wait a bit, and then this is when I press EX. You can see the Y button, which is my EX button, triggers right here. So you can see I could EX right here, which is what I normally do. Like right after I come out of the pause, I'd EX right here. But instead, I just wait a bit and EX here instead while holding down right and lock. And you can see here's the devil's hitboxes and there's the EX. And what happens is this EX, see how it goes over the phase threshold? And this triggers devil into this phase. And here, you could just DPS him. And right as he's done with all this, you can go for a downright EX here. This positioning and timing is important, so this is definitely something to pay attention to. But the idea is that I'm blowing up a double damage EX on the ground here, and it's going to hit both eyeballs. It's also pretty nice because the lobbers, these downright regular lobbers, are able to bounce up and hit the eye, so all the damage is able to hit pretty well. And then what I like to do is I like to chase after the eye that's moving away from me. So I go for another EX there. Funny enough, that lobber actually barely missed. And yeah, just go for some quads. Now, on this part of the fight, you can jump up in between the eyes and do an EX here. This will hit for double damage. Also, later in his animation, his eyes will lower a bit. And once they're lowered all the way, depending on where you triggered him to freeze at, if he's low enough to the ground, you can hit an EX down here, like at his nose, and it'll blow up and hit both eyes for quad damage as well. Sometimes, though, you don't even need to like wait for that, or you don't even need that much damage. Like, just getting a double damage EX, which is what I do here, is enough to finish him off. So let's see what that looks like in real time. Again, I'd really take note to the positioning and timing of the quads. There's a few different ways you could do it, though, so you could experiment, but this is the way I like to do it, and I found it to be pretty consistent for me. So basically, it's like, as this eye is reaching to the right, that's when I go for an EX kind of on the right side of this blue platform. So let's see that again. So here, you could do as the eyes come down is when I time this one. And that's when it's going to get you in the sweet spot that hits both. And then you can see I'm chasing into the eye. And then as it's kind of getting away from me, that's when I go for the EX. So that it blows up when in between the eyes, basically. So that the lobber EX explosion will hit both eyes. And I could chase after that eye a little bit, chase back after this eye, and go for some more there. So yeah, that's kind of how to optimize the damage once you get this freeze. Now, the good news is, like, if you do miss this freeze, like, you're just shy on damage, it's not that bad. Sometimes you'll trigger, like, a weird half glitch where the devil will freeze kind of at a more normal spot up above, but, like, no minions and stuff will spawn in. Sometimes there's no music. There's a few different ways it can go. But this is the ideal scenario where you can get him frozen in a position where you can hit these quad damage lobber EXs. That's really where the time save from this comes from. But yeah, this pattern I explain in more detail. But there's a lot of kind of rinse and repeat, just with some minor details changed on the other patterns. And so I figure I'll just kind of show them, and that'll also kind of help to reiterate what's going on here. Yeah, give it these quads, as many quads as you can get. And finish off with the double. Or another quad, depending on how it lines up. But yeah, that's the devil freeze. So let's go over the other patterns that we can get this on. All right, so next up, we're going to have the one pattern you can get this on where the dragon is the second attack, which is the bubbles into dragon. Now, you really need an extended bubbles phase, which is just RNG. To get the freeze. But you kind of just go all out on damage anyways, so you basically just go all out on DPS on this pattern, and you just hope that you did enough to get the freeze. So you can see I generated 4 cards as he's turning into the dragon. Always take note of your card counts to get a feel for this stuff. So here, you can see I went for the really quick double quad here. And I was able to turn in here and use Spread Shot to quickly get rid of this imp. And then I could go for some more EXs. I could have shot those down right instead of straight down. But in that situation, that's what I went for. And the straight down EXs are fine. It just means that your regular lobbers will miss if you had any. But yeah, you could see, like, I went all out in terms of quads. Like, I was able to barely get 4 cards, and I used all 4 quads here. So you don't want to do any singles. Just go for as many quads as you can on this pattern, Bubbles Dragon, and which is going to be 4. If you couldn't quite get 4 cards because you had a fast Bubbles phase, just go for 3 quads. You're not going to get the freeze, but it's still just really good DPS. So you like I said, you basically are just going all out in terms of quads, and then you're just going to do as much damage as you can. You can see here, this is much further from the threshold, but it's still just barely close enough to get the freeze. Because that's why we also don't want to do a single damage EX. It's just, one, it's inefficient because down below we're going to get doubles, triples, or quads. On the stake itself, we're going to get quads. So doing a single damage EX is super lame. And we need a card here in order to trigger the freeze. Now, this is also on this clip in particular. This is before I knew about the setup where you could do Spread Shot on the way down. This actually would have been a little less tight if I knew about that. I could have got like 12 damage on spread on when I was falling down through the devil. But yeah, you can see a similar thing here. This one I paused a little bit early. Delay a little bit, go for this freeze. And this is a really good height right here. Like this is the kind of height you want. Now in this one, I kind of was able to just shoot gun him down because I just didn't have very many cards because you're really short on cards with this strat. So you're only going to be able to probably get a couple quads here on the eyes, but it's still really valuable. And in this case, because I triggered him with a bunch of health to go, you can see I go for a quad here in between them. This is what I was talking about, where you kind of are getting this EX to blow up kind of at the nose, in between the 2 eyeballs to get that quad damage EX finisher. But yeah, let's look at this fight one more time. Again, this is the only RNG that you're really gonna get this the freeze on with the dragon as the second attack. In all other cases, you're gonna be looking for the dragon to be the 3rd or 4th attack to go for a freeze. But yeah, that's what it looks like there. Again, I could have made this a little easier on myself if I did this spread damage on this section. But yeah, you see I do that pause and I delay a bit for the EX. Get some quads. And his eyes, notice how his eyes drop here, so they're close enough to the platform. Once his eyes drop down, they are close enough to the platform that the quad will reach both. But if I tried to go for this EX, like, as soon as I got this card, it might have not hit because the eyes are a little bit too high up. But once they've dropped down, that's when you can finish them off with the quad in this kind of situation. All right, next up is Flames Clap Dragon. For me, this is the fastest freeze kill I was able to get with the dragon.
Good day.
This is another pattern similar to Bubbles Dragon. In that you could pretty much just go all out on DPS and go for 4 quads, and you don't really have to worry about soft locking. It's pretty hard. It'd be pretty dang hard to do enough DPS to soft lock. But it is possible, so it's something to keep an eye out for. You can see in this case, I actually did come pretty close to it, but I was like, I don't know, that's like 1.7 cards or something. So if you wanted to be a little bit cautious, you could go a little bit less cards than this, maybe like 1.6 cards or something. But this was honestly a pretty good spot because I'm still like, you know, a lobber shot or so away from triggering him. But if you want to play it a little bit safer, you could in this pattern. If you have really great DPS and you're worried about soft locking, you could just go to like barely over a card and a half. Because unlike Bubbles straight into Dragon, Flames Clap Dragon, you do have slightly more time to damage the devil, and that's why it's like slightly easier to soft lock here. But honestly, it's still pretty hard. Like this clip, I got close, but in practice, sometimes I just straight up don't get enough damage, even if I hit all 4 quads. So it's a pretty tight kill, and that's why thankfully you don't have to worry about soft locking here too much. But it is something to be aware of that it is possible. I also played this super aggressive, and that's part of why I had so much damage that I almost hit the soft lock range, because I was just playing super aggressive to try to get a good time. But in a run, you might play it a little bit more safer, and just in doing so, you'll lose a tiny bit of damage. It'll make it that much harder to accidentally soft lock. I didn't even get the spread damage there. But yeah, you can see the ending. I mean, it's going to play out pretty much the same idea. I chase after the eye that's moving away from me. It seems like that makes spread shot hit really effectively, and then I just finish off with a double damage EX because that's all I needed. So yeah, that's Flames Clap Dragon. This is one of the ones I don't recommend learning this as your first Devil Freeze pattern because it's pretty tough. It's a pretty tight pattern. The Flames attacks in general are pretty hard to deal with and keep up DPS. I recommend learning some of the bubbles patterns first, and then worrying about this. But yeah, there's still some more to go, so let's get to those. All right, so here's the couple patterns that you could see where the dragon is the 4th attack. Over damage is always going to be. These are like the ones that are at the most danger of soft locking. So definitely some key stuff to take note of here. In these patterns where you get the dragon as the 4th attack, so basically you have like way more time, or even dragon is 3rd, but with a super extended bubbles, like bubbles clap dragon, but you get a super slow bubbles and like a bigger delay on the clap move, because the clap move has a random delay, so sometimes he's going to stall more. Sometimes you end up with a really similar situation with just dragon as the 3rd attack, but just because you had like really slow bubbles clap into dragon RNG. So similar notes can be applied, as is with these like dragon 4th patterns. So you can see this is what makes this a bit of a tricky situation already. So because this extra clap, I'm hitting 5 cards now, which is really early. So I basically had like a 3 or 4 extra jumps of spread shot after hitting 5 cards. And so that's going to change how we're going to go about things here. And you can see how I compensate while still preserving cards to optimize the later phase is I only go for 2 quads on a pattern where I went over, like I basically over damaged past 5 cards by several jumps. You only need to go for a couple quads and you can still get enough damage here. So you can see I had like 3 or 4 jumps of extra spread shot before the dragon went away. Then I went for 2 quads, and then I hit just over 4 cards, and this puts me at a pretty good spot. So that's something good to aim for with this kind of pattern. Now, I will say, if your DPS was kind of rough, this is where you just pay attention to your card count. So I hit 5 cards here, but let's say your DPS wasn't the best, and you're hitting 5 cards here. Like just as he's turning into the dragon, similar to the other pattern from before. I believe it was the Bubbles Clap Dragon. So if you're just hitting 5 cards, you can change this. You know, you can adapt and go for 3 quads and do something more similar to what I did with the Bubbles Clap Dragon. But in this case, I hit 5 cards, several jumps worth of spread shotting before he turned into dragon, and that means I had so much over damage, I only need two quads. So that's something where you just have to adapt. And honestly, like, I'm showing you all these patterns, but really, like, your card count when he turns into the dragon is going to tell the story of what your follow-up should be. Because the dragon, when you're going for the freeze is always going to be the last attack. And so where your card count is at is going to determine how many quads you're going to do and what you should be looking out for to avoid soft locking or whatever. So in this case, I had 3 or 4 jumps worth of spread shot, past 5 cards, and that means I'm going to do only 2 quads. Whereas if I just barely am hitting 5 cards or just slightly over, like maybe one more jump after hitting 5 cards, I'm going to go for 3 quads. And what's nice about 2 quads is it's pretty hard to soft lock with this. You can see I wasn't even that close. Like this is a pretty sweet spot to be in. But I could have had a bit more damage, went over 4 cards a bit more. Like you had even more damage and I still wouldn't have soft locked. This would have been even easier threshold to hit if I knew about this spread shot on the way down at the time of recording this. But yeah, then once you get down here, you're into the same kind of territory as normal. Just go for those quads and finish them off. All right, there's one more pattern, and it's the slowest of them all. So this is the one that's like super duper duper easy to soft lock. So let's bring that one up. All right, so here's the slowest pattern of them all. Clap bubbles, clap dragon. Slowest pattern in terms of double freezes. So this, especially if you get long delays, like that was actually a fast clap. But if you get everything super slow, like you could end up like stalling out for a long time here. So one thing you can do is if you see you're getting this RNG, you could say screw it and just go for like a single damage Lobber EX and to hover above this next clap. And basically it's really easy to just skip this. So if you don't want to risk getting Spider, you could just clear this phase out. And it's not even that much slower of a fight than if you do get Dragon and you get the freeze, or even if you get Spider and you get the freeze. So it's something worth considering to just say, hey, screw getting freeze on this pattern and just go for DPS. But yeah, in general with this, you're gonna hit your 5 cards like way early. Like look at this. I hit 5 cards as soon as he's finishing the clap. Now, an actual really sweet visual cue is as soon as you hit 5 cards, if you want to set up for this freeze and you want to bait him to turn into the dragon or the spider, you want to stop DPS as soon as you hit 5 cards. And after he finishes the clap, you want to wait for him to turn his head back and forth twice. So he's turning it there. Actually, yeah, it's when he I believe it's like right around here. When his head's turning, I guess, back to what would be his right or to the left on the screen. This is when the game checks if you've done enough damage or if he should start up his next attack. So this, I did it pretty much as early as possible. But that's pretty, like you could easily trigger an attack. So I recommend waiting just a tiny bit more before DPSing again there. But yeah, you could see like, you can see up here, look how close I am to triggering the phase. And right here, I trigger the phase. And he still did his next attack. So this was like I said, about as early as you're going to get in terms of being able to DPS him again while still baiting the next attack. So this, look at this. I'm getting so much extra damage. So I'm able to go for only just 2 quads here. And this one I go quite a bit over 4 cards. It's similar to the other setup, just this one I got a lot closer. Similar to the clap flames, clap dragon. This is just clap bubbles, clap dragon. But one thing is like sometimes you're gonna have to wait around a lot longer if the bubbles or claps are super slow. So sometimes you do get punished more for like trying to bait this dragon or spider to come out. But yeah, this is insanely easy to overdamage on at multiple points, so that's just something to keep in mind with this one. Did that quad actually hit? That looks so early. Let's see that. It'll be interesting to know if you can actually do it that early. Yeah, I think it only hit as a double. So yeah, that's a good example of just firing the EX off too early, actually. That's funny. Now these all hit as quads. And there it is. So yeah, that's the Devil Freeze. I recommend learning all the general Devil stuff like I showed earlier and getting good at all that first. And then you can go through these different patterns and start learning them on just the dragon. Now, anything you learned here, you can apply it to the spider, where all the same card count things. So it's like, on some of those past patterns, I was like, okay, I just hit 5 cards as he turns into the dragon. So I'm gonna go for 3 quads. You could do the same thing against spider. Go for 3 quads on spider. Pay attention to your card count. In the case of going for 3 quads, you're gonna want to go, a bit over 3 cards, slightly over 3 cards. And it's just you apply these same things you learned here to the spider. The hard part is just dishing out that same amount of damage. And sometimes too, the spider could screw you over. He can kind of go for way longer and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a really cool thing, and it can save quite a bit of time. So good luck learning the Devil Freeze stuff. I am now going to talk about some spider things. Now I'm not going to go too crazy on the spider because, like I said, I've not even learned all the spider stuff. It's an incredibly overwhelming amount of variation that the spider has if you want to truly optimize every scenario that could ever exist. And it's a bit inefficient in terms of practice because, practicing hundreds of different spider situations for many, 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 many hours when you are only going to get some runs to the devil and you may never see 90% of the patterns that you practice on spider. It's basically a lot of work. For most of the time, a pretty small payoff, but it's still part of the speedrun. It's still something there, and it's still something that could be improved. Like the pinnacle of spider gameplay hasn't been achieved in this category for sure. So there's definitely a lot of room for improvement there, and I figure I'll just share some stuff that I know in case you do want to know more about the spider or tackle learning some of this yourself, and maybe even push the boundaries on what is possible with the spider. So yeah, let's get into that. All right, so let's talk about the spider. Now I want to give a huge shout out to Sublime. He put in an insane amount of work working on the spider in the 1.0 version of this game. And he shared a lot of this information that I'm gonna talk about now. And so if it wasn't for him, spider would just automatically be like the doom of all runs with no hope of getting anything good from it. But thanks to him, and then also putting in some effort to convert some of these ideas to 1.15, there is actually some glimmer of hope for the spider. It still generally sucks, and it's still a ton of work for just, that small glimmer of hope. But there actually you can get some pretty good times with spider if things go well, and I'll show some clips of that later. But first, I just want to explain how the spider works in a bit more detail to give you an idea of how to go about this stuff. So let's start off by just picking a head pattern and selecting the spider. And so the spider can hop between 3, 4, or 5 times. And when he leaves the screen, there's a random delay between 0.3 and 0.7 seconds before he falls down again. These are the important things to know about the hops. Now, what's important is this, and this is why the spider is an absolute beast of a boss to try to optimize. Like, it's super tough. So what these are plus or minus coordinates of where the spider will fall in relation to Cuphead. So, very simple. If I select 0, then that means he will fall dead center on Cuphead. So, you'll see here, this first hop, he's going to fall straight down onto Cuphead. So I'm just going to stand still, and you'll notice the spider, bam, dead center on Cuphead. And that's because there's 20 different offsets here, and the game happened to pick one of these zeros. Now, after this, I'm going to get a 100 coordinate. So the plus coordinates is going to be to the right, and the minus coordinates is going to be to the left. So 100 means he's going to be a bit to the right. And minus 50 will mean he'll be a tiny bit to the left of me. So let's see that. So there he's a bit to the right. He still hits me. And you can see here, he's not dead centered with me. He's just slightly to the left. So that's kind of how to go about reading this. Now, if I selected something like 300, he's going to appear very far away from me. So you can see if I'm setting a lobber trap, he's way out there. So something like 300, he's just completely out of reach. Now what makes this tricky is you could say, oh, well, just see where he drops on the first one, and then you know the pattern, right? Not exactly. Some of these you do. Some of these numbers only appear in this one time, but look at 0. So you could get 0, 100, minus 50. Or you could get 0, 100, minus 150. Or you could get 0, minus 150, 50. Because what it does is it just picks a spot at random, and then it rotates through until the spider's done jumping. So if it starts at this 0, it'll wrap back around to this minus 150, then do a 50, then a minus 50, then a 300 if you get all 5 hops. So this can make pattern reading very, very tricky. All right, I actually realized it would be easiest to show kind of like how to make sense of these offsets and like an example of what you could do with them. So here's a fight where I just start on spider, and the goal is to get as much damage as I can to make this not too bad. Now, what you'll see is we were just talking about those 0, 100. So here's a 0. So I set up a lobber trap, I go here, set up another lobber trap, and now this is the 100. So now I know I'm on one of these 0, 100 patterns. So the next RNG could either be a minus 50 or a minus 150. In either case, that means the spider is going to be a bit left of me. So what I do here is I actually, since I move left to dodge the spider, I also make use of being a bit left to set up a couple lobbers, and then I move right a bit, just a bit. And the reason is because look at this. Because I set up some of those lobbers to the left, and those ones were in the air because I wanted them to bounce longer. This is kind of advanced. This is where it gets really complicated to optimize spider things. So I set up a couple in the air a bit to the left because I know this will hit the minus 50 or the minus 150. These lobbers will hit because I'm moving like these lobbers are a bit to the left, but I'm moving Cuphead right, and the spider only cares about Cuphead's position. And the spider's going to be a bit left of Cuphead. So that's why I'm moving right to bait the spider into these lobbers that I just set. Now, the rest of these lobbers, since the spider's coming in soon, I don't need them to bounce very high. So what I could do is I can stand and shoot them. Because as you know, shooting lobbers straight up while standing actually shoots them a bit forward in front of you. And this is just all to help these lobbers be in position to hit the spider. So you can see that this is the spider's going to the minus 150 spot, so it's pretty far. So I basically step to the side a bit to line up this quad, hit a quad right there. Also, all that positioning is taking into account that I need to get the spider on the quad spot. So here I know I could just set up a simple lobber trap, move out of the way, and get another quad here. And then, because in this case I have no more EXs, I don't care about the quad spot. And in a run, I wouldn't know if the spider would do a 5th hop or if he would stop. So instead, all I do is I set up a lobber trap in the middle. Because either way, I'm gonna be able to hit the spider some, or hit the devil as he finishes the spider attack. Then he does a clap there to finish up. Actually, almost skipped the clap. So let's see what that looks like in real time. And this you can see, like, you could figure out sequences like this that are well thought out, and your movement, where you're putting the lobbers, where you're aiming to where you want to go for quads, how much of a gamble are you taking with your trap? You know, do you want to hope that he only does 3 hops, 4 hops, or 5 hops? So maybe you're going to try to set up a trap in the middle and hoping that the spider attack ends. Or maybe it's worth it to say, hey, I actually want 5 hops right now. I want spider to do that many. And so I'm going to play more over to the right, more at his trident to be near the quad spot. So, and this could be like this kind of mentality and this kind of optimization could be applied to every single spider offset and situation. Because like this is the thing is even within this spider offset, this is spider first where I don't have many quads. So this is a very different story. If let's say you get bubbles first and then this spider, you're gonna have a lot more cards, and in that case, you might even be able to go for a devil freeze, which we're gonna look at some of that later. So that's kind of like, you know, I'm basically explaining why this is so complicated, but also how it works in case you do want to tackle this yourself and start like chipping away at this and learning some of this stuff. You can see there's the bait there. And that's the dream scenario. The thing is that you need to be very careful about when you're practicing these is when there is an overlapping coordinate. So in the case of 0, it overlaps 3 times in the 20 offsets. And even 0, 100, there's still 2 different patterns. But this pattern this strategy here kind of accounts for all the situations. It can make all of them work. And so when you make these strategies, you don't only want to think about that exact spider offset. You want to think, does it have overlapping patterns? Because in a real run, you're not going to know what offset you have. And you have to get that information from the spider and where he's landing, and you have to have it all memorized to be able to detect, okay, it's this offset, so this is what I should do. So yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. I'm going to go over a few more examples here, though, so you kind of get an idea of some different scenarios. All right, so in that last example I mentioned, what if you get bubbles into spider, for example? So you have a bunch more cards. What does that look like? So here's another example fight.
This match will get red hot.
So you're going to start off just your normal bubbles opening. But instead of getting the dragon, we're going to get the spider. Now, as you know, you can get the devil freeze with this pattern. It's possible. So you can also get it here with the spider. So you're going to see I'm always going to go here near the trident, set up a lobber trap. And then here, you can see the spider starts off with a 100. So 100 overlaps twice. And the following coordinates are either minus 50 or minus 150. So I'm going to do this, set up that lobber trap. I actually messed up. I should have turned left before shooting those lobbers up, but in this case, it was fine because I got the minus 50 instead of the minus 150. These 2 lobbers I shot on the ground would have missed if I got the minus 150. Because he would have just been too far to the left. So I should have looked left and then shot straight up so that the lobber shot in front of me and more towards the left. That's just a minor note. You can see I get a quad there. Now, what's interesting, I set up some I want to set up 2 lobbers. I kind of messed up and one of these got shot to the diagonal because I kind of had to maneuver around that imp too, which kind of, the imp can really throw things off. And it's honestly one of the hardest parts about getting good at this is because the imp's just going to be at different timings. Like, it's just how it is. And the spider, like I said, he has a random 0.3 to 0.7 second delay. So you kind of have to guesstimate on some of this stuff. But you'll notice I'm shooting an EX straight up here. So why am I doing that? Well, that's because after a 100 coordinate into a minus 50 coordinate, which is what I got, and I saw that, I'm guaranteed to get a 200 coordinate, plus 200. Now, 200 and minus 200 are very unique in that you could shoot an EX up and down, or diagonally down, before the spider's even here. And they'll hit him with the quads without you getting hit by the spider. So it's like this sweet spot. Look at that. Where I was able to shoot this EX up and then this one down. Now, you have to have a bit of just a psychic timing because you can't react to the spider. You kind of just need to feel it out and try to time these so that you have the biggest possible window to try to aim for this. But it's really useful because it allows you to hit 2 quads without getting hit. And you can see, so if you remember back to the freeze stuff with the dragon and how I said it could be applied to spider, pay attention to the situation we have here with our card count. Okay, so a little over 4 cards. So you know that means we're going to be going for 1, 2, and now I want 2 more quads. So I'm going to take advantage of this double quad. Bam. Now, at this point, the spider could realistically do a 4th hop or a 5th hop, right? In this case, there was RNG control, so I knew he was going to do 3. But even if I didn't know, I know I've already gotten all 4 quads off. I do not want to do any more quads, or I'm just going to over-damage him. So instead, I just go to the middle, because at this point, if he does more hops, I'm just going to be waiting around anyways. But the ideal scenario is he just stops doing hops here, so that way, you know, I don't have to wait around for him forever. So as you know, you can go a bit above a card and a half safely after getting 4 quads on that kind of setup. It's the same thing, here as it was with the dragon. All those card counting things apply. I even throw in a little spread there. That's pretty risky. And yeah, you go right into the freeze. So that's an example of like taking advantage of this. Look at that, a 47. Taking advantage of this, and yeah. But here's the thing about Spider is in a run, the Spider could just give me a worse offset where it's way harder to get this damage. Like he could start on like a 300 coordinate or something, so your opening lobber trap guaranteed misses before you can react. He could have just hopped 5 times, and I would have just had to wait it around basically because I don't want to soft lock the devil. So the Spider, you need a lot of things to go right, and you really need to know what you're doing to line this up. But this does show some potential. Like this is a really good time, 47.84. But yeah, I want to also pull up a pattern where one of the Bane Devil patterns where normally if you get the dragon, you actually can't set up a freeze, but with Spider you can because you can get like an extended Spider phase. So let me pull that up and show you an example of that in effect. All right, so this is Flames into Spider. So let's see kind of how this plays out. So just your normal Flames attack. Now I'm getting like this would be way too early. If I got the dragon here, I'd only be able to get off 3 quads because that's all the only cards I have right now, and that wouldn't be enough to set up a freeze. But watch what we could do with Spider here if you get the dream RNG. So you can see here I got another one of these 100s. It's also, by the way, it's really hard to not miss these lobbers, but you can try to like manage flick lobbers and stuff in amongst all this. But in general, you want to prioritize actually landing the quads because the timing and positioning can be quite difficult while also reacting to the Spider. Now look at this. I saw this imp in the background here. It was going to be here. So after I set up this trap, I kind of like as I moved away, used that time to also kill the imp and also move out of the way and position to the quad. So there's just a lot of like, you really need to envelop yourself in these patterns, and get used to them so that you can basically improvise while managing all this other stuff. So you can see I set up a bit of a trap there. Unfortunately, that lobber somehow missed. That's incredible. Kind of did the best I could with that offset that I was given, and I just went for 1 quad because I didn't have this 4th card yet. But here, I'm basically going, okay, if I could get this 4th quad off, I have a chance at a freeze. So I gamble for the devil falling on me there. So I want to bait him still near that quad spot, and I just step out of the way and get this quad. But now that I've gotten 4 quads, I know, hey, I have a chance at the freeze. So I've gotten my 4 quads off. That's the most quads you ever want to go for. Outside of Spider's Kiss, which is a whole nother thing. But yeah, I guess get as much damage as I can there. And let's see that sequence play out one more time, this fight. And then I'll also show how it ends and everything. But yeah, like this is a pattern I just would not be able to get 4 quads off in time. So I wouldn't be able to get a freeze. But on Spider, because the Spider can take longer, you have more time to generate cards. But look, I also just barely generate 4 cards. Now, if I got a 5th hop, that would open this up a little bit, but it would also be slower. Because I'd probably end up having to wait around a little bit if I got a 5th hop, and your damage is really good. So just some stuff to keep in mind. If I only got 3 hops, I wouldn't have been able to get the freeze. 3 hops is like more similar in terms of time to Dragon. You just don't have enough time to generate that many cards typically. And yeah, you just go for the freeze. And yeah, this is one of the few main devil patterns where, in theory, if you get this perfect scenario where you get an awesome offset and you read the offset, you manage the imps, you don't mess up the DPS or the quads, you get the right amount of hops to set up the freeze just perfectly, and you barely get the freeze off, this is actually a faster time than my best Flames Dragon time. So, and I'm sure a lot of this stuff could be improved. You saw, like, I missed a lava up above, and, like, you know, you could get really good at the spider stuff, and, you know, if you get these dream scenarios, you can get pretty good times, but it is kind of unlikely. So, yeah, let's move on to the next one. So I wanted to show off that you can get pretty creative with optimizing these offsets if you really want to put in the work to figuring out all these scenarios and when, you know, different stuff's worth it. So here's a spider start, but with a different offset. Now, it's going to start off looking the same. I get this 0-100. But here, remember, you can get -50 or -150, for example. So in this scenario, I just set up a couple lobbers here, and I moved to the left. I know the spider's going to be falling, you know, almost directly on me because that was the -150. So it's going to be going into the 50. I think that was the -150, right? This stuff's so hard to keep track of. But yeah, either way, he had a... Yeah. So that was 0-100 -150, and now, so that means that this is going to be a 50, a +50. So he's just barely to the right of me. So I basically set up and get as many lobbers as I can, but now this is where the creativity comes in. So after I move left of him there, let's look at that again. This is so confusing to keep track of, even in making the tutorial. All right, so 0 coordinate, 100 coordinate. Set a bit to the left because it could be -150 or -50. I get the -150, which means it's going to be a +50 coordinate. I just get as much as I can there, and now this is what's cool, is I go to the middle because I know that the next RNG is guaranteed at this point. I've seen so much of the pattern, I know where I'm at on the pattern. You know after 3 attacks always what the whole pattern's going to be. There's no overlap that's ever beyond 3 attacks. So after that that 50, I know that the next coordinate has to be -250. So basically the spider's going to be super far left. So what I do is I set up a lobber trap in the middle. A couple lobbers. Now, the reason I set it up in the middle is if the spider doesn't give me a 5th hop, the devil himself will get hit. But if he does do another spider hop, I dash to the right. And that is so that when the spider goes very far left of me, which he does right here, those lobbers that I set up in the middle are actually in position to hit him. Now, I do unfortunately miss 1 regular lobber there, but now I know he's done all 5 hops, so now I can just go back to setting up traps in the middle. And that's an idea of like a creative solution to dealing with some of the more terrible coordinates, as long as you know they're coming. If you've been able to read the pattern enough, you can do some of these preemptive, like setting up a lobber trap, moving out of the way so that it still falls on your lobber trap just to get a few more lobbers in. Now, of course, if that was like the first coordinate, if he just gave me a -250 right off the bat, I would just miss my lobber trap because I haven't had time to read his pattern. So let's look at that one more time in real time. And this is kind of going to be the last example I show of dealing with offsets. But I do want to say, like I said in the link in the description, there's that dash out of the way to bait him into that trap. Pretty cool. But yeah, in the link in the description below, I'm going to be including a link to a compilation of all the my best devil fights on all the main patterns, including a couple different offset things. I never even memorized all the offsets or optimized all the offsets myself. It's a tremendous project to do so. 'Cause it takes a while to figure out how to handle these, how to improv these with the different int positions and the different spider delays, how you manage these offsets when you have no cards at the start of them, like this when it's the first attack, or how you do it when you have lots of cards and you need to go for a lot of quads. It's just extremely complex. But for all the stuff I've done on the devil, all the main stuff, it's included in a compilation video down below that you could use for reference. You can look at a lot of these other patterns. There's a whole bunch of other doing these spider attacks within different devil RNG. You can see how that all plays out and try to learn from it. Now, I will close off by just kind of showcasing a phase 1 devil kill known as Spider's Kiss. Sublime, again, shoutouts to him. He came over to 1.1.5 and he pulled this off. He invented the strategy and was the first person to ever do such a thing. So I'm gonna pull that over there and kind of just talk about it briefly, but also why I don't believe it's currently even remotely run viable. But there may be some hope to it. So let's show that, and then that'll be the final bit of the tutorial. We're almost there. So one last cool thing here, and then we'll be out. All right, here it is, the Spider's Kiss. So. Oh, I'll just let it play it out. I'll just let it play out. A lot of y'all have probably already seen this, but if you haven't, it's quite something. I'm gonna talk about what's going into it right now and what I think would need to change for there to be any hope for this strat to end up in a full run of Cuphead. But it's still a really cool spectacle. And it's incredible Sublime was able to figure this entire sequence out. And yeah, there it is. That is the fastest way to kill the devil. The Spider's Kiss. All right, so let's talk about this for a second. Okay. So the thing with this kill here is you need a lot of time to deal as much damage as humanly possible. Now, the pattern that gives you the most time is exactly clap, bubbles, clap. Now, keep in mind, there's also RNG durations to all these attacks. Also, sometimes you can't get the parry from the bubble. It just doesn't come into a good spot where you can keep up DPS. So you need to get clap, bubbles, clap, snake. It's essentially a 1 in 7 for the devil's main RNG, if I'm remembering correctly, into a 1 in 3 because you need exactly the bubbles attack because it's longer than the flames attacks and you need that extra time. At least it's never been done yet with clap, flames, clap into Spider. I did try it. I wasn't able to pull it off. It is somewhat close to being possible, so it wouldn't surprise me if it's eventually done. But as of now, this RNG is exactly the only RNG this has ever been able to be done on. So as of now, you need clap, bubbles, like I said, that's a 1 in 7 into a 1 in 3. Clap, Spider. So the Spider, you could get snake as well. And so the Spider's another 1 in 2. 50-50. And then you need a 1 in 3 because you need the Spider to hop max amount of times, which is 5. So you can hop 3, 4, or 5 times. You need him to hop exactly 5 times. And you don't know, by the way, how many times he's going to hop. So if he hops 3 or 4 times, because this strategy is so committal, you're just going to soft lock the game, but then not have enough time to kill the devil. So you're just going to have to retry the fight, basically. So it's a full all-in, full YOLO strat. Now, in terms of Spider offsets, you need a really good offset that allows you to get off like amazing lobber traps while getting off a bunch of quads. So you can see all these very specific setting up the lobbers, going for these double quads. And as of now, this is also the only offset this has ever been performed on. So that's a 1 in 20 stacked on top of all those things. Also, I just want to point out, sometimes the imp is just going to screw you over. He's just going to be in a bad spot that really messes with you. Also, sometimes the spider RNG delays can screw you. Like this up plus down quad. Because you can't react to the spider, you have to YOLO the timing. And it is possible to just like have the weirdest timing from the spider ever, and you could like miss this quad. There probably is like an absolute perfect timing where it might always hit no matter the spider delay, but a lot of it, like it does feel very volatile. Like you know, sometimes you're just gonna miss it. You have to get this quad before he goes away, and yeah, really good just lobber optimizations and stuff, and doing the best you can at finishing them off. So if you add up all the RNG you need to come together for this, as of now, it's only been performed in exactly this scenario, which is a 1 in 10,000 odds. You know, I've done over 2,000 Cuphead speedruns, attempts of Cuphead speedruns. Now, only a small fraction of those make it to the devil. And also, only a small fraction of those make it, even smaller fraction of those make it to the devil on a run good enough where this time save would ever matter. So we're talking, for me personally, for example, I have had 2 devils that, if it got exactly this kill, could be better than my current PB. So I've had basically 2 chances where this ever would have mattered. So that's a 2 out of 10,000. Now, I have over 2,000 hours in Cuphead. You get where I'm going with this. You know, it would take hundreds of thousands of hours, which is completely unrealistic, of YOLOing for the strat, risking soft lock, also staying super practiced up on it because it's extremely difficult. It's extremely tight in terms of timing. Super practiced up on this so you could actually clutch it out at the end of like a PB paced run, a really good run that makes it all the way to the end. Like, it's just in a massive time sink. As of now, in my opinion, for full run purposes, it's a complete waste of time. It's just so extremely rare that you just have much better odds of just grinding out more star skips throughout the run, or better RNG on like one other boss anywhere, you know, in your run. Just stuff like that. You could just get, or even just, you know, grind out a 46 devil. Like, that RNG is not, you know, that rare. I think you could get 46 devil on like 5% of the patterns rather than 0.01%. So this kill is just so unlikely. But that being said, as it is now, it's just kind of like a meme strat. If y'all are familiar with Super Mario 64, this is like the carpetless of this game. It's just not realistic to get in a run, and it's a huge time sink. In this case, it's not because of the difficulty per se. It's because of the rarity of this pattern, and it also is simultaneously super difficult. But, you know, carpetless in Super Mario 64 was a strategy that saved like 50 seconds. It was a complete meme for many years, and even though that game has a massive active community with tassers and all these different things, it took a long time, but eventually someone did find a run viable setup, and they're doing it in runs. And maybe that will happen with this. If people figure out a way to optimize this further and to make this work on more RNG, so instead of like a 1 in 10,000, maybe you could get it down to even like a 1 in 100. You know, having a 1% chance of getting a scenario good enough for it might be enough to have this strat become viable in runs. Still extremely unlikely and extremely rare, even in that case, and it's still going to be a massive time sink because there's so many spider patterns you need to learn. But yeah, I do estimate there's probably like at least 5 spider offsets that could work with this if you sat there and you calculated out this entire sequence. I do think you could make it work on that many. So there is some hope for this. It's not completely hopeless, but as it is now, it is just an insane strat. You know, a 1 in 10,000, you know, at the end of a run. on the final boss that, you know, you're not going to make it to every run, especially not on pace. It is just a nut strat. But yeah, it's super cool. I'd love to see it someday if the setups are improved and people are able to make it work on more RNG. Because sometimes that's all it takes is just a slightly better setup being found or a way to get more damage so that, hey, now we could do it with only 4 hops, so we don't need exactly 5 hops. Hey, now we could do it on 5 spider offsets instead of just 1 offset. Hey, now we could do it on flames clap spider instead of only exactly clap bubbles clap spider. You start figuring out how to make this work on multiple patterns, and it would have hope. But as of now, it's been done on only a 1 in 10,000 RNG, and that's where it stands as of making this tutorial. I still wanted to show this off. If you want to try this for yourself for the fun of it or to experiment, I recommend checking out the Devil compilation will have this clip. You could play it and watch it. You basically just have to copy the sequence 1-to-1 as it is now. One small thing, I recommend checking out if Holreese. I'll link that as well. His Devil. He found a pretty cool optimization that I'll just briefly mention since I am talking about this, where you can basically set up a couple lobbers to the side of the Devil's head to basically set up like a mini lobber trap where you still avoid triggering the phase early, but you also, when he'll turn his head and then the lobbers will hit. He said it's actually extremely difficult to pull off, but it does get you slightly more damage than what I'm doing here. But other than that, you could pretty much copy the sequence 1-to-1. And this is how you, as of now, the only way we know how to get Spider's Kiss. But yeah, this was a lot, and I question whether I should even talk about this in the clip, but it is such a cool trick, and part of me does hope that over time somebody does figure out more setups to this. It would be super cool. But for now, if you're just learning for full run stuff, I think you just put this into the, you know, the kind of meme territory or, you know, unrealistic territory for full run strats. Or just like, you know, an IL only strat kind of thing. IL being an individual level. And marking it off for full runs for now, because it's just, yeah, it's just insane. But yeah, that is it. That is the Devil. So I'm gonna give some closing thoughts here, and you're done. You're free. We're through. So good job on that. But yeah, I'm gonna give some closing thoughts. So that is it. You have done it. You've made it through this tutorial. Oh, this was an absolute beast of a project. It ended up taking, I knew it would take a long time because since I made the last advanced tutorial years ago, so much has been discovered. The game is so much more well understood now. Strategies and standards have just gone so far, so much further that this is a lot to cover, and I know this was probably a lot for you all to take in and a lot of stuff to consider practicing. But man, I do hope you all enjoy. I hope it all helps you all cut down your times and get some, you know, reach all your Cuphead goals. Even come bot me, you know, 2733. It was a good run. I'm really proud of it. But in the world of Cuphead, there's so much RNG. There's so much room for little optimizations and just clutching out consistent, good play. That there always will be room for improvement in the record. And it's not always just about the records, you know. Also, just whatever your goal is, you know. Maybe you're just trying to say, hey, I'm just trying to get sub 30, or you know, trying to push, you know, beat my friend on the leaderboards or whatever. Just stuff like that. Whatever your goal may be. I hope you enjoy your journey and that this helps in it. But yeah, if you did enjoy the video, this is just really, like I said, it's just for the community. But I do plan, I'm sure I'll make more Cuphead content, you know, in the future, and also just speedrunning content. I truly love speedrunning. And yeah, so if you're interested in any of that, consider subscribing or whatever, that kind of thing. And I'm sure there'll be more videos in the future. For all the kind of cool speedrunning things. And yeah, best of wishes, and best of luck to you all. I am glad to be done with this, but I'm also very glad and satisfied to have done it and to get this video out for you all. But yeah, again, thank you, and Good luck. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.